2, hello, check. Two, hello. It me. Thank you, Sean. How's it going, folks? What's up? What is that gesture? You know, whenever, like, you know, like right now, you're chewing, you're trying to, like, and you go like this. What is that exactly? What does that mean? That's just like an instinctual gesture that you do in those situations. It's like somehow it's going to make you chew and swallow faster. To hurry up, chewing. But who am I telling you to hurry up? Hurry up, chewing. I'm talking to myself. It's like I'm doing a gesture to myself. You're doing your best and you want others to know. I guess that's a good way of looking at it. Let's just keep doing it now. Let's keep repeatedly doing it. That's the teacher when you go in at lunch break to ask them a question. Sorry, what was that? They do the mouth cover. And then he takes another bite. This man wasn't hurrying at all. Outrageous. Well, I'm hungry. Okay, I want to eat my lunch. All right? I want to eat my lunch. And this is a pretty good sandwich. I'm all out of pickles, though. This really needs... Oh, I guess I could have put some onion on there, too, and I kind of forgot. This sandwich really, really is in need of a pickle. A pickle would really elevate it to the next level. I used to give math help at lunch in my classroom. It really hindered my ability to eat my lunch. I guess so. Yeah. I guess so. That makes sense. When I worked for Costco, we watched a training video called "Give Him the Pickle" about going the extra mile. I've never been part of the Costco lifestyle. I've never been to Costco. I don't have a Costco membership. The people that are into Costco are like really into it, and it just seems like something that's very strange and foreign to me. Perhaps I should, though. Perhaps I should start experiencing the Costco lifestyle. The food looks good. The hot dogs, etc. Hello, Super. My wife loves that place. I think everyone's wife loves that place. Those that have wives, anyways. The $1.50 dog is top tier. I think I want to get a membership just so I can get the hot dog, honestly. We are live, motherfuckers! Have you considered using that as an intro, Rob? Might really energize the stream. I'm not gonna lie, it did kind of energize things. It did kind of energize things, it's true. I don't know if that's gonna be a regular thing, but... Sweet, sweet nitrates. Not particularly a fan of Costco either, but why pay $8 for 4 liters of milk when I can pay $4.50? That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. I don't think I would drink that much milk. That seems like a lot of milk, though, you know? That seems like a lot of milk. I remember that, V from TO, I remember that a Costco executive suggested raising the hot dog price. And the CEO said he'd murder him. I respect that. Like we were saying, and some people are saying, it has some of the better business practices. And that seems like one of them. No, we're not fucking raising the price of the hot dog. As we've talked about with the whole inflation thing. If we think about economics as this like inscrutable mathematical system that just has these like rules, we lose, as I've talked about a number of times, we lose sight of the fact that there's human beings all along that process being like, we will raise the price of this product to this, and we will raise the price of this product to this. All these people raking in billions of dollars of profits, especially during the last few years. So you appreciate that, like when they're like, listen, look at all the prices out there. We got to raise the price of the hot dog. And the Costco CEO is like, I will murder you. I will kill you if you do that. You know? And lo and behold, people still go. And they still do quite well. They still do quite well, from what I understand. You've just become an elite member of the Friendship Triangle. Oh my goodness, Dick Penderin. Dick Penderin. Thank you for the 5 gifted subs. What a wonderful start. And when it plays the alert, I'm wearing this exact same shirt. I'm wearing this exact same shirt. Thank you, Dick Penderin, for the 5 gifted subs. I really appreciate that. What a great start to the stream. Oh, I forgot to say chin chin. Chin chin, everybody. Oh, that's good. That is just damn good stuff. How extensive is your flannel shirt collection? It's not that extensive. I think I have like probably 4 that I wear regularly, and then a couple more like the B team. You got a couple more on the flannel B team. How are you celebrating the big day? Austin Powers watch party in the Discord Eve. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be there because I have this event that I'm doing tomorrow. I'm going to have to miss Austin Powers. I should just cancel the event. Just cancel the whole thing. Just be like, sorry, I forgot. Last minute. No chance of changing the venue or anything. Everything booked. Sorry, I can't do it. I got Austin Powers tonight. I totally forgot. Just that day. Just call in that day. As everyone's waiting for me. Ooh, I got Austin Powers. So sorry, can't do it. Good luck with everything. Good luck with everything. I'm sure it's gonna go great, but can't make it, unfortunately. Don't mean to shag you guys over here, but I got plans. Oh, behave, is what I'd say. Excuse me. Hello, Raven. Yeah, baby. Speaking of the event that I'm doing tomorrow, we're going to talk to Andre Goulet in like 5 minutes. I'm going to bring on my friend Andre Goulet of the Harbinger Media Network. We're going to talk a little bit about this event tomorrow. One final push to get people hyped on this event. If you're in Montreal or the surrounding area, please come. Will Costco hot dogs be served at the event? Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. But we're going to do one final push. We're going to get Andre Goulet to join the show in just a few minutes. And we're going to just hang out for a couple minutes and talk about what we're going to be doing this weekend. Will I be home by 9? I don't know, because it might go a little late. Actually, no, I will not. No, I will not be home by 9. It's 8. The whole event is 8 to 10. And then the whole idea is that we're going to hang out after and do stuff. So it might be a little bit of a late night. But I do hope you all have a wonderful evening watching Austin Powers, International Man of Mystery. So just one sec. I'm just going to get the Zoom call ready here. Just to talk amongst yourselves for one moment. I'm getting the Zoom call ready so we can talk to Andre Goulet. Hang out and do stuff. He was going out for Bob Seger karaoke. Well, the whole thing is that we can stay in the event and do stuff. We can stay in the venue. But if some Bob Seger karaoke happens, I don't know. Who's to say? Who's to say whether that's going to happen or not? We don't know. It could. You never know. Okay, just one sec. I know I was muted, okay? I'm doing some stuff. I know. Fire. I guess I can just send via email. Okay, I'm sending that over to Andre right now. Oh, gosh. Oh, gosh. Oh, that is just great. What a fantastic product, honestly. They were really cooking something when they made that shit. I don't know what kind of dark magic goes into that. But my God. Oh. Did you see my Stone Toad Steve Austin video I posted? No, I didn't. But if you, we can check that out later. I'm not red in the face. What are you talking about? I don't think so. I don't think I am. Have you seen the video on how they make those? No, I've seen the video on how it's like a satanic, imagery, satanic brainwashing thing. Oh, done. Done. Slammed it. Woo. Woo wee. Honor should just be here in one moment. Gotta update the Zoom PFP. I don't know. I like that one. I like this one. Tiny Rob face. That's right, Orb Lady. We're just doing this today. We're just looking at a tiny picture of my face. I decided to, I was like, what's on the agenda today? What's on the agenda? I think we will just stare at a tiny image of my face. It's an Attackerman stash in the profile pic. It was pretty thick at that point. That was probably its thickest. Okay, here's Andre. Hello. Hello, are you there? Andre.
Yeah. Hi, hello.
Hey, what's up?
Well, I'm feeling stupid because I got some Valentine's donut at the grocery store and I just noticed it made my lips pink. So this is really embarrassing. How are you?
I didn't really notice.
Oh, okay. Just looks like I'm wearing. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Valentine's Donut's a little early for that, isn't it? It was a whole month away.
Yeah, it was weird. And so, anyways, this is a mistake. Now I know. Rob, I'm really looking forward to a very exciting event tomorrow.
Oh,
Do
yeah,
you know what I'm
what's that?
talking about?
No, I have no idea what you're referring to. No clue
Okay.
whatsoever.
hmm Well, you forgot that you're participating in a live left media and activist networking event tomorrow evening in Montreal. It's a live recording and media criticism night with your friends Nashwa Khan and Paris Marks. Does that
Wow.
ring a bell?
No, but that sounds fantastic though. Wow. Tell me more about this wonderful event because
Up-
that sounds really exciting and I'm really thankful that I'm apparently a part of that.
Okay. Well, as we've talked about, met about, texted about, written to each other about for weeks now, we've been preparing a basically star-studded night of media criticism with three people who are extremely not to be too complimentary, but very brilliant, very charismatic, very engaging, and very entertaining. So we coordinated putting on a basically Saturday night party where we're inviting people to come to St. Jack's Center in downtown Montreal. It's near Concordia University. And it's basically going to be an 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. live media criticism event where you and Nashua Khan and Paris Marx are going to be making fun of and critiquing intelligently Canadian media. Is this like ringing any bells? Are you remembering anything about this?
Well, it's actually, this is a bit awkward, Andre, but I do have to let you know that I didn't realize that on the same night that that's scheduled, I'm actually supposed to be watching Austin Powers, International Man of Mystery, with the Discord server of this community. So I'm gonna have to. Is it still too late? Is it still? Do we have time to maybe rearrange the timing of
Huh.
that, or because
Wow.
that's
Okay.
really
So
important that I do that. So
okay, so I'm hearing you say that when you announced to your community that you had this huge event that's going to be like a major evening in Canadian
that's
media.
taken
Um,
that's taken weeks to plan and has been very
right.
meticulous, and there's a lot of energy and effort being put into it. Yeah.
And that I've put in like 50 unpaid hours to coordinate. You're telling me that your community is reminding you you actually had a date with them
That's
to
right.
watch
To watch
Austin
Austin.
Powers.
That's right. Austin Powers, the Mike Myers film, International
Okay.
Man of Mystery.
Yeah. Oh, that's a great film. I mean, that would
Shagadelic, baby,
yeah.
is what he
Yeah.
says in that.
That would be a great night. There's no doubt. I guess what I would say to your community, because I understand how they're kind of possessive,
Yeah.
uh, and might not want to have to share you with a live audience. I might ask them to consider getting a plane ticket, flying into Montreal sometime tonight or tomorrow morning, and then basically coming to the show instead of insisting that you host the
Oh, I don't even
online
have to
film screening.
host.
Oh, just watching?
Yeah, I'm just supposed to watch it.
Oh, well, in that case,
They could just all
what
come to my apartment and we could
mhm,
just watch the movie there as
instead of
well.
doing it at St. Jacques?
Yeah. Well, you do
Oh,
the show
mhm,
afterwards in order to
okay.
squeeze everything in. We do the whole thing tomorrow, like you're describing.
Mhm,
Afterwards,
mhm.
everyone comes over to my place for a sleepover.
Oh,
You have a movie night. You get Austin
pizza.
Powers. Maybe you order
Yeah,
some
some
Pizza
pizza.
Hut or
Yeah,
something, like
yeah.
whatever it is.
Okay.
That could work too, and then everyone wins.
Okay, so that's actually a really good idea. I think on my end, I can probably help coordinate this. My question is, in your apartment, so like you remember we have invited guests to table at this event from a pretty large amount of people.
Yeah.
So like confirmed to attend are the Palestinian Youth Movement, Community University Television at Concordia, the Breach Media, Pivot Quebec, the Solidarity Journalism Cooperative, CKUT radio station, Harbinger, the Solidarity Economy Incubator at Concordia, Unrigged, Canada's national left journalism community, Sierra Club Canada, the McGill Daily, the student newspaper, The Rover, independent journalism in Montreal, Unifor's Canada Freelancers Union, the Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives, Canadians for Justice and Peace in the Middle East, Le Daily, McGill's French language magazine, and the General Union as well. So, do you have room for those? Like, I guess it's like 16 organizations. Let's say they each bring a couple people, plus you and me, plus Nashua and Paris. 36 people. Can you fit that in your apartment?
In addition to the several dozen people that are from the community that are going to come, I think that's going to be fine. Yeah,
Okay.
I don't see
Well,
an
let's
issue
do
with
that.
that.
So let's like host the show at the church. Um, After we'll take like a fleet of cabs over to your neighborhood, and then
Yeah,
we'll tell people to bring sleeping bags. It's not too late for me to go to the Eventbrite and on the Facebook event page and let people know, bring a
good.
sleeping bag, bring a pillow, maybe bring a snack.
Yeah,
Okay.
that would be a lot of snacks to have to get ahead of time. So I think
Hmm.
that makes sense. I'm
Okay.
hosting the. They're sleeping over here, so I feel like that would be fair.
Okay. Oh, totally. They should give a little something back. Well, you know what? That actually sounds really fun. I was picturing more of like an after party at the event where after you and Nashua Khan and Paris Marks have your 2 hour media criticism event, We were going to do like an after party and networking. The venue is BYOB, so people were going to like drink wine or drink beer and listen to good music and stuff like that in a really cool church basement that's been changed into a black box speakeasy with a really cool atmosphere. But your apartment's cool. You have like a black light and shit.
Yeah. Yeah, I got
Okay.
all kinds of wacky lighting in here.
Okay. That's
That's
cool.
fun.
You know
Yeah.
what? That could work. Okay. Okay. Well, okay. How about this? Can we compromise maybe with your
I
crew?
can't stop seeing the pig fingertips now.
Yeah, I know. It's so ridiculous. It's so bad. My problem is there's three more donuts and there's like 24 hours or 26 hours before the event. So like I can't eat another one until after the event or I'm gonna look so silly. Um,
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the compromise with your community, Rob, is that what if we do the event, you guys go on stage, you do a really smart, compelling, funny, entertaining 2 hour media criticism show, then what if we do like an hour and a half of networking at the Black Box Speakeasy Lennox in the St. Jack's Church basement, and then around 11:30, which is like 8:30 Pacific time, we head back over to your place. So around our time, midnight, 9 p.m. Pacific, we start the film. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that sounds wonderful. That
Oh,
sounds
cool.
good. No, I'm really looking forward to this event, Andre. I don't know if we want to keep doing this, rolling with this bit the whole time that we're
Good bit.
talking here.
Fun bit.
But I'm really looking forward to it, honestly. Like, we've been talking about doing something like this for a while, right? Like, I feel like almost ever since I've known you, we've been talking
Yes.
about kind of organizing something like this. It was something that, yeah, I've been really thinking about wanting to do for quite a long time. And it's kind of exciting that this is finally coming to fruition. We had something planned in December. That didn't work out. We had to scramble last week because of illness and COVID to reschedule, and now it's happening. It's tomorrow. There's no backing out of it. There's no way getting out. I'm a little nervous just because I'm used to talking into a microphone and a camera and having just like reading words from other people, just being in this situation and being around, actual other human beings. It's kind of a different dynamic for me, but I'm excited. I'm excited for this thing. I think it's going to be really cool.
Well, from a producer's standpoint, what I think is really exciting is that you, Nashua Khan, and Paris Marks are buddies. So when you hang out, you kind of do what you guys all do online, which is talk about the same things, make fun of the same things. And it's like, it's fun. It's actually really robust. It's just that instead of scrolling on my phone, I'm hanging out with you guys when you do it. So that's the idea. It's basically like invite an audience to come hang out with their three online friends for a real event. We're going to record it and have it ready to go out on video with the help from our friends at CUTV. We're going to record a podcast, a 2 hour podcast, and release that a couple weeks later. But what I was excited about too is that this sort of event where we're kind of bringing like the big stars out with you and Paris and Nashua, we're also able to invite all of our friends from different activism communities and solidarity communities and independent journalism communities. So like having everyone come together and get to buy baked goods to support Palestinian youth movement is awesome. And then pick up like a poster from The Breach, get some stickers from Harbinger, get like a postcard from Unrigged. It's going to be a really cool opportunity for people to just like, I don't know, kind of do like a bit of like a hall show vibe where people are just like, or kind of like a zine fair or something. Except that it's all about making fun of our dog shit corporate media. So it's for nerds like us who think about these sorts of things. And so for an audience like yours, guaranteed it's worth getting that plane ticket right now and flying into Montreal when it's minus 17 Celsius.
Yeah. For those that can't do that, I know I have some people in this community from Montreal and surrounding areas, and I'm hoping to see some folks come out. But we are like recording this thing, right? Like there will be ways for people that aren't able to get a last minute plane ticket to Montreal, Quebec. There will be ways for them to check out this event, right? That's possible.
Yeah, and so I'm really happy we're partnering with CUTV, that's Community University Television at Concordia. They're sending a crew to record visually. We also have a professional team doing the tech at this event, so they're going to be recording professional level audio quality so that Harbinger can release it as a podcast episode. So both those things are like going to happen guaranteed before the end of January. So yeah, if you cannot make it to Montreal tomorrow, Saturday, January 20th at 8 p.m. at St. Jacques Center in downtown Montreal, we will have a visual and audio option for people to check out. Does that make sense?
That makes a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really looking forward to it. It's going to be fun, and hopefully, it's going to be the first of many of these things. I feel like,
Yeah.
right? I think this is it's kind of a pilot project that I think hopefully we can continue to do this kind of thing. And I think the
Yeah.
cool thing about the Harbinger Media Network also is that it spans the entire country. So in theory, we could be having events, with some of our colleagues and comrades in Alberta or BC or Halifax, or like across, like there's people all across the country that are part of this project. So it'd be really cool to maybe be able to have events elsewhere.
I
Right. I think that could be
literally was
cool.
thinking about that today. I want to plan an event in Toronto in June, and I'm going to be in Calgary probably in May. So I was thinking of planning an event in Calgary or Edmonton in May. So yeah, this is the pilot. But I mean, the idea is since you, Nashua Khan and Paris all live in Montreal, and you're all buddies, this was a really easy way to just like do a thing that wouldn't take a lot of heavy lifting besides putting together like a fun presentation. Organizationally, everyone was just like really stoked. And actually, when I invited these 15 different organizations to come table, there was a lot of enthusiasm. So that made me really excited because it's an opportunity for like people who are doing independent media to come together and connect that to the activist community, which obviously is super important right now because we live in a world where in the United States and in Canada, you really can't talk about human rights. You can't talk about Gaza. You can't talk about Palestinian rights without getting canceled. So we're like proudly bringing all these organizations together to have a night where we're like, I don't know, taking a stand, being public. And I think that's important. So Nashua Khan does a lot of solidarity organizing in Montreal around human rights in Palestine and around the genocide in Gaza. So I'm stoked that that's like an important characteristic about the night that we're doing. So yeah, it's like it's fun, but it's also serious and real, talking about issues that matter to your viewers. So it's going to be an awesome night, and don't be too nervous because literally you three are going to have like such an easy time doing what you do all the time, which is talk about and think about and joke about all this kinds of stuff.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think it's going to be really fun and should breeze by. And we've done a lot of preparation. The presentation we got is looking good. It's interesting that you said that because I was actually going to put you on the spot and
Mhm.
say like, let's do Toronto this summer and see if I can
Mhm.
just put you on the spot right now and get you to agree. And I guess that's already in the works. So
Fuck yeah.
there we
No,
go.
like it's like
Let's
it's
do
like when I
that.
go to Toronto to go visit friends, I get together, I invite like all the media people to come hang out. So doing that, but like trying to do a live show would be like super easy. Uh, so yeah, no, I'm excited to make these Harbinger soapbox series happen around the country. Yeah, I guess, but the one thing that's cool in Montreal is that we connected with this church, which has very deliberately tried to be a space that does things other than worshipy stuff. And so they are welcoming us to open to hang out in their basement. We're splitting the door with them. But like they're being really generous. It's a weird church, by the way, for viewers who don't know St. Jacques in downtown Montreal. It's one of these Anglican churches that's like rebooted. So they turned their nave into a circus performance venue. And so there's
It's like
like
the most Montreal thing ever.
yeah, there's like acrobat stuff in like the rafters. It's very strange. But
And it's
the
going to be
guy that
great
runs
after when the evening's gone on a little bit. We're all a little tipsy to get up there. I'm going to be doing my acrobat routine that I've been working on as well, just kind of an additional thing for everyone that sticks around. I know you've got some some tumbles and some stuff, the trapeze type stuff that you were thinking about as well. So that
Yep,
should be fantastic.
absolutely. And actually the guy that runs events at the church, we had a media networking event a few months ago, which you attended as well. And the guy that runs it like literally asked us, hey, do you want to put on a leftist soiree? Since you guys are like well connected with all of the media people. And we were like, yeah, that rocks. Let's do it. So 3 months later, we're finally getting to do it in a sort of situation that honestly is going to feel like a really comfortable community kind of vibe. And so I'm looking forward to it. I have like no fears. And actually, I'm just really looking forward to hearing you and Nashua Khan and Paris Marks talk about media and critique Canada's dog shit media
Yeah.
ecosystem.
Yeah,
Hmm.
no, it was fun actually that night a few months ago to check out the venue. And then when we were a little bit tipsy after the night had gone on to go and explore this big cavernous church situation, that was really interesting.
Well, and Paris likes to joke about the church stuff, like as we've been planning this stuff, because, I'm not religious. I don't think you're religious. Paris isn't religious.
No.
Nashua explained to us yesterday, which I thought was interesting, that she's politically Muslim. And I was
Yeah.
like, oh, interesting. But that makes sense. It's like, that's the way I'm politically Mennonite because I'm a pacifist and I believe like I'm against consumerism, right? So there are ways to kind of still go hang out at churches without it being weird. And just for listeners in the United States who are like, ew, church, whatever, it's like Montreal's a city steeped in religious heritage, but literally 90% of the people do not go to church anymore. So there's all these beautiful old buildings that they've figured out how to sort of like repurpose for society. So in Montreal, I think we don't always have like as gross of a feeling about religion as I certainly would if I lived in like Sacramento or Boise. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. No, like my friend Matt, aka Unelectable Airwaves, in the chat is saying we have Unitarian churches in a lot of places, essential punk rock infrastructure.
Cool.
And it's interesting for me too. It's like a full circle moment for me. That's how I started discovering like independent music and punk rock and hardcore as a teenager in Brockville, Ontario, was by going to hardcore shows in the basement of Trinity Church in Brockville, Ontario. Now here I am, all these years later, doing shows in the church basement, just like I was
Yeah.
doing when I was a kid. So that's
Okay,
fun.
well that's a nice sort of through line of history and yeah, and also to be fair, the Anglicans they're pretty good on reconciliation, even though they ran a lot of residential schools. And they're actually really good on human rights and justice for Gaza. And they've been calling for a ceasefire and actually doing activism around it, which I really respect. On the other hand, during Anglican services, and I know this because my father's an Anglican priest, they pray to the prime minister and the mayor of Montreal.
Okay.
It's an Anglican thing to pray for political leadership, not to political leadership, but to
Okay.
pray for our leaders, which I find absolutely hilarious and fucked. Yeah.
Yeah. Putting with the whole display of Trudeau on the cross that was there, I thought that was a little tasteless, honestly.
We
Hopefully
did
that's
agree
something
that
we can
mhm. we did
workshop.
agree yesterday that we will be praying to King Charles to kick off the event tomorrow, and I think that is important
Instead
as
of
well.
a land acknowledgement, we're going to be doing a King Charles acknowledgement to
Yes.
really drive it home.
Big fingers, yeah.
Is there anything else that we want to talk about this event? I think it's like I know you didn't want to come on for too long, but is there any other final? I'm just looking for the Bitly link
Hopefully,
so I
for
can post that.
viewers who are in Montreal, we've described it enough to kind of make it sound interesting and enticing. It's like a Saturday night out at an event for $15 where you can bring your own beer or wine is pretty rad. And the space is really awesome. It's going to feel like a cabaret, the way the tables are going to be set up with you three at the front presenting. And like, it's just going to be a really good time. And again, the value add of having 16 different organizations tabling at this event is going to make it a really kind of extraordinary night, I think. So, come for Rob and Paris and Nashua, stay to drink and hang out and pick up merch from all these different orgs. It's going to be a cool evening. So doors are at 7, show starts at 8, $15 cash, or go to the Eventbrite, which Rob, hopefully you can drop in the chat
Yeah,
if you
I
have.
dropped it in the chat. I think like if people want to get tickets with the Eventbrite, that's great. I think it's cheaper just to show up at the door with some money because with Eventbrite you have taxes and stuff like that. But
Yes, literally,
whatever is easier.
you save $4 by paying cash at the door, and so that's not a bad idea. But yeah, doors at 7, show at 8. Networking, hanging out, whatever, drinking from 10 to midnight, listening to music. So it's going to be an awesome evening, and I'm super stoked about it. So thanks a lot for letting me come on the show and kind of talk about it. And yeah, for viewers who are in Montreal, honestly, it would be it's the hottest show in town, is what I think.
It's true. I agree. I agree with that. Okay, Andre. Well, looking forward to it. Thanks for stopping by to promote this thing, and thanks for everything you've done behind the scenes, pulling this thing together. It's gonna be a good
Absolutely.
time.
It's so fucked that my mouth I'm seeing is now super pink. But be there, be there at 6 o'clock for the sound check, okay? That's when you show up. So I'll see you
Yeah.
tomorrow at 6, okay?
Good. Sounds good.
Okay. Have a good one. I'll talk to you soon.
Take care, man. Bye
Bye.
bye. Okay. That was Andre, and that's the event. It's tomorrow. I don't know how many of you are watching this that you're in Montreal or surrounding area, but I hope to see at least some of you there. I know there's a few. I know there's a few of you. And it's going to be cool. I hope to see some of my flock. Some of my flock showing up. Isn't Montreal France or something? No, it is not. That is not accurate. France is actually in Europe. So, it's a totally different continent. Make them wear name tags with their chat names. Unless the chat name is Tampon Taste Tester, then probably in that case, not as much. You got to come to the West Coast. Sandy and Nora came out last year, and it was a pretty large crowd. That's going to be trickier for me, obviously, but we do we have colleagues and comrades that are doing stuff on the West Coast, so I think it's entirely possible to have a show that's part of this kind of series out there. I don't know if I would be there. Maybe one day though, I would be happy to. I haven't been to Vancouver in many years, many years, so I would really enjoy that. Logistically, that's a little bit trickier to pull off for me, but it's eventually, okay? Eventually I will make it. Eventually I will make it out to Vancouver for either some kind of a something, okay? Oh, yeah, I'm a little nervous about this thing, you know? I'm a little nervous. I know it's going to be I know objectively that it's going to be fine. I know objectively that it's going to be fine and enjoyable and a fun night, and all I ever do is just talk into microphones and try to entertain people. So it's just I'm going to lapse right into my kind of muscle memory of trying to do that, but a little nervous. I don't know. A little nervous. So it's going to be great though. It's going to be great. You'll feel fine when it begins, but you'll agonize until then. I think that sounds about right. That's how I felt when I did that breach election coverage thing. Just imagine the crowd is chat. Yeah, so just like plebeians that are beneath me that I don't respect, that I'm above, you know. Yeah, no, I think that's what I'm going to try and do. I'm just joking, chat. I'm just joking. I would never. Ground should just randomly send him an interrupt with a fake gifted sub. That would be good. Yeah. Just play the alerts. Okay, so let's watch some kind of video content. Okay, that was a great way to promote this event that I'm looking forward to. I think now we can pivot into doing some kind of video content. You can act out the notifications on the stage. That's right. I will. Because I'm basically an NPC streamer. I am basically an NPC already. So it's just like automatic. I lapse right into it. I'm still pretty sad about this. Oh, what's this? Plunger Man. Thank you so much for the 1337, Plunger Man. I really appreciate that. Thank you.
I can't make it for the show over the weekend, so here's my ticket.
Plunger Man, that's so kind of you. Thank you. And really appreciate the tips right now still. Very, very helpful to me. These tips that have been coming in over the last couple of weeks. I can't thank people enough for helping me out with those. Has been very beneficial. I'm still pretty sad about this Pascal Siakam trade. I just wanted to say one thing about this. I must say though, I was seeing Bruce Brown Jr. play in the game last night. The Raptors unfortunately lost to Chicago. It was a good game. They couldn't get it done in the end. Scotty Barnes was fucking amazing, magnificent. It's his team now and was really great, especially in the fourth quarter, but then made some key mistakes. But, key mistakes down the stretch was costly. I really liked Bruce Brown Jr. What a professional. He just shows up. He shows up and immediately came in right in, knowing nobody and nothing about the team or anything, and had a really good game. And I'm still a little bit disappointed with the package that they got for Pascal Siakam, who's an All-NBA player, All-Star player. Bruce Brown and some late first-round picks are, not really that great. It's kind of 50 cents on the dollar, even though Bruce Brown is really a quality kind of rotation player. But I've been thinking about it like as a mega trade over the last couple of weeks. Like if you said that we traded OG Anunoby and Pascal Siakam for Emmanuel Quickley, RJ Barrett, Bruce Brown Jr., and 3 first-round picks, that's pretty good. I think they got maximized value for OG Anunoby. They probably got undervalue with Pascal Siakam. Overall, that's pretty good haul, though, for those two guys. Well, I don't even think that it was that he wasn't going to sign Dakadoon. I actually think he wanted to sign, but it wasn't really part of the long-term plans. So, but yeah, that's the whole thing, is that he was going to walk for nothing, or they were going to get. I think that the key is that I think people were disappointed that they couldn't peel off one of the Pacers young prospects, because they've got a number of young guys that are really good. And I think people were a little bit disappointed that we couldn't get one of those guys included in the deal. But I miss Bruce so much, it hurts sometimes. So Trick Rag, are you like a Nuggets? Are you a Nuggets guy or person? Nuggets person? I really liked what I saw of him last night. Like I said, what a professional. Just walked right in and looked like he belonged there. I don't know if he's going to stick around or if he's part of the long-term prospects. They might end up flipping him for someone else, because I think there might be like championship contending teams that really want to have Bruce Brown for this upcoming playoff run. But I really I was really impressed with him last night, definitely. Just a quality pro, rotation guy. And was really a nice piece on a championship team last year, so. But that's all. I'm going to miss Pascal Siakam. I was a little disappointed with the trade, but I'm starting to feel okay about it. That's all the sports chat that I wanted to do. Let's find some kind of something here to look at. You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this. Dick Penderin, thanks for the 5 months tier 1. You're really coming through with some support today, Dick Penderin, and I appreciate it a lot. So far, it's only Dick Penderin. There's the sole community member putting up numbers right now. Putting up big numbers. Thank you, Dick Penderin. And if anyone else wants to support this show, please subscribe if you can, or give subs or bits or what have you. Tips also very much appreciated right now. If you enjoy the show, if you like being part of the community, you want to support the work that I do on here, please subscribe if you can. Yeah, I worship at the altar of Jokic, but I'm really happy he got paid. He deserved even more than what he got. Yeah, I mean, it's sad that he couldn't stay with the Nuggets, too. It's some kind of like salary thing. It's unfortunate that after helping the team win a title, they had to let him go. You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this. The rest of y'all legend while Dick's straight goonin'. And Old Dutch, thanks so much for 34 months resub at tier 2. I appreciate that, Old Dutch. Very close to the 3-year badge. I'm no dick, but did y'all watch Rania and Abby and Katie Halper? Yeah, we watched a big chunk of it yesterday. We didn't watch the whole thing, but it seemed really fantastic. And like I was saying yesterday, I'm really proud to be connected to all of those fantastic journalists. I think that's really cool. They're all friends of the stream, friends of the podcast. I've been happy to work with all of them over the years. I saw Susan Sarandon was there as well. Yeah, I saw that. I want to hang out with Susan Sarandon. Why can't that be me? Why can't I hang out with Susan Sarandon? The same Susan Sarandon who single-handedly got Trump elected, the most important person, the most important and powerful figure in U.S. politics, Susan Sarandon. Ask her how she decided the 2016 election single-handedly. I wish Susan Sarandon was the most important and powerful person in American politics. America would be in way better shape if that was the case. If that was the case, I think America would be doing way better. I bet she'd come on the stream if you could find a contact for her. If only I could find a contact for Susan Sarandon. If only. Wow, that would just be fantastic. That would be so fantastic. If only I could do that. Oh, wait, what's this? Oh, what's this? Oh. What? What? I don't want to open my DMs there. That's dangerous. What? Oh my goodness. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
9 months with the Canadian who loves prog rock.
Thank you, Doc. Not so strange for the 9 months. I don't know am I the Canadian who loves prog rock? Is that me? I don't know. I guess so. Anyway, it's not like I'm bragging or anything. I'm not going to brag. I'm not going to brag about who follows me on social media. You know, it's not a big deal. Like, you know, who cares? Who cares if Susan Sarandon follows me and I can DM Susan Sarandon at any time? Who cares, really? You know, it's not that big of a deal. It's not that big of a deal that I can at any point contact famous, beautiful Hollywood actress Susan Sarandon. Okay, it's not. You know, whatever. It's fine. It's not that big of a deal. It's no biggie. Exactly. Get followed by Cat Turd 2, then you've really achieved something. I'm blocked by Cat Turd 2. Cat Turd 2, I don't think he does support freedom of speech. He's a little bit of a snowflake, blocking all the people that make fun of him sometimes online. Cat Turd 2. I think it's because I did a search. I did a search for Cat Turd 2 for all his tweets about cow farts. And I would recommend anyone do this experiment. Go to Twitter and type in from Cat Turd 2 quote cow farts. And there's hundreds. There's hundreds of tweets about cow farts from this man. A very strange person. Very strange guy. It was amazing that for those first few months of like Elon owning Twitter, he was just bending over backwards to make sure Cat Turd 2 was having like a seamless user experience. You know? That was a really strange time. The Green New Deal wrecked so many brands. I know. Anyway, back to the fact that I'm followed by Susan Sarandon. Again, it's not a big deal, and it's not like we don't need to cultivate lists of famous, gorgeous Hollywood actresses that follow us online. You know, it's not okay. Sorry. Just playing. I wanted to maybe watch some of their electronic intifada live stream, but they're so long. Well, let's start with this. Let us start with this. There's a breakthrough news video about the Houthis here that we can take a look at, and there's another conversation about how Israel's genocide in Gaza serves U.S. imperialism from Rania. So maybe we can take a look at these two things.
The U.S. just designated the Houthis as a foreign terrorist organization for what amounts to trying to stop Israel's genocide. In their statement explaining their rationale, the State Department says pretty candidly that they made the decision because Yemen's Houthi movement, whose real name is Ansar Allah, has been blocking Israeli and U.S. ships from passing through the Red Sea. Now, the stated purpose of Ansar Allah's blockade is to uphold Article 1 of the UN Genocide Convention. And given Yemen is a member to the UN Genocide Convention, Ansar Allah says they have an obligation to stop the shipment of weapons and other supplies to Israel while it commits a genocide. Now, this blockade, which again is meant to stop a genocide, fits, according to the US, the textbook definition of terrorism. It's hard to even know where to start with this, because the US is saying that the terrorists aren't the ones perpetrating a genocide or the ones giving weapons to the ones committing the genocide.
Yeah, tell this to the community notes squad. Tell this to the community notes squad, or the people like Hassan as well, as talking about all the pushback that he's gotten for doing the interview he did. What? He says he supports the Houthis though, and they did this and this and this and this and this. Well, are they committing genocide? Are they dropping white phosphorus on little kids right now by the thousands? Okay. Oh, Israel is doing that, and America's doing that, and they're trying to stop it. Okay. Like, it's amazing how completely brain poisoned these people are.
But the ones who are trying to stop the genocide. The designation also says that another dimension of Ansar Allah's terrorism is that their blockade has disrupted the free flow of international commerce. But the US disrupts the free flow of international commerce all the time. The US has laws that ban companies from buying and selling products from certain countries. The US uses its control of the international banking system to deny entire countries access to international trade and credit. The US even has a policy of seizing resources and assets of countries it doesn't like. Designating Ansar Allah as terrorists for setting up a blockade is also deeply ironic because, as many people have pointed out, the US is currently enforcing 2 unilateral economic blockades of Cuba and Venezuela. And unlike Ansar Allah's blockade of Israel, which has yet to actually kill anyone, the US blockade of Venezuela has killed thousands of people. It's estimated that the US blockade of Venezuela has killed over 100,000 Venezuelans because the blockade makes it illegal for companies conducting trade with Venezuela to also trade with the US, which leads countries to abandon trade with Venezuela and causes mass shortages of things like fuel and medicine. Ansar Allah is using their blockade to stop a genocide, whereas the US's blockades are intended to starve and collectively punish the countries they target and could be considered a form of genocide. But yes, Ansar Allah, who the Biden administration took off the foreign terrorist list 3 years ago, are now terrorists again because their actions have caused, in the words of the White House, quote, weeks of delays in product shipping times. The terrorism designation is obviously ridiculous, but that's because Ansar Allah's terrorism designation has nothing to do with terrorism. Ansar Allah aren't being punished because they committed terrorism. They're being punished because their blockade is working. Israel imports 99% of its imported goods by sea. A quarter of these imports come from Asia, and their closest port to Asia is the port of Eilat. The port of Eilat, which is on the Red Sea, is now blocked by Ansar Allah and has seen an 85% decrease in activity. The Israeli shipping company Zim was forced to reroute its ships around Africa, which substantially increased their cost and travel time, and some of the largest shipping companies in the world have followed suit. Maritime insurance premiums have also gone up more than 40%, and these shipping companies, they're going to pass these costs on to Israeli consumers, which is going to cause prices to rise and imported goods to become more scarce. This war is kind of like something that resembles an economic recession for Israel. A survey taken in November found that 1 in 3 businesses in Israel is operating at 20% capacity or less, and more than half of Israeli businesses lost 50% of their revenue. According to the labor ministry, 18% of the Israeli workforce has been called up into the military to fight the war, which has left a huge hole in the Israeli workforce. There are videos that show Israel using its soft power programs like Taglit Birthright as sources of free labor to supplant the loss of workers. Over 1 million Israelis have left the country, tourism has collapsed, business investment has collapsed, and all in all, the Israeli Treasury predicts that Israel's GDP will have fallen 15% in the 4th quarter, and that the war will cost Israel a total of $58 billion, which is 10% of the entire economy. State Department records show that for decades, US elites were concerned that they would lose control of the Red Sea. And in 2015, the US would go on to arm, fund, and support a genocidal war waged by Saudi Arabia against Ansar Allah. This war pushed 2/3 of the Yemeni population to the brink of starvation and caused the worst cholera outbreak in human history.
And like the amazing thing is that despite this massive humanitarian disaster that we like in Canada and the US and the UK helped to create by backing the Saudis, now you have all these people who overnight, because of like because of Israel and the Houthis or Ansar Allah and the Red Sea blockade and the American bombing campaign, overnight they get their little like NPC brain chip activates, Houthis bad, and they start freaking out about that. So you have people like Brianna Wu, for example, who are now, despite the last 10 years of this horrible situation that we totally enabled against the people of Yemen, and now you have people blaming the Houthis, blaming Ansar Allah, blaming the people of Yemen for being responsible for that, despite the fact that it was a war perpetrated by the Saudis, backed by America and Canada and these Western countries. And people are just like, it was the Houthis' fault that all that stuff happened. Because overnight, this like switch flips. They get the message from corporate media and from the White House that they have to be against these people. It's incredible. It's really incredible.
But it still failed to defeat Ansar Allah. And now, the same Yemeni people who faced a US-backed genocide only a few years ago are now mounting the most disruptive actions against the US-backed genocide in Gaza. This is, of course, humiliating for the United States.
For being the only ones upholding their responsibility to stop a genocide. Yeah, except maybe South Africa.
And then they defeated South African apartheid. In that sense, this latest terrorism designation for the Houthi movement is just a continuation of this very long trend. Terrorism is, of course,
we should talk about this tomorrow.
Term. Of course, apartheid states and their supporters are going to consider attempts to end their apartheid states as terrorism, but in Palestine and the Middle East, the real terrorists are the ones who are carpet bombing hospitals, schools, and entire neighborhoods. Israel and the United States.
Yes.
So we know that.
Okay, let's stick on the breakthrough news thing. Okay, this is Rania with Professor Ali Kadri. How Israel's genocide in Gaza serves U.S. imperialism. They have been doing amazing work for years now, and again, very, very proud to be tangentially connected to Rania and Eugene, and the work that they do on there. I think it's really so valuable.
All the time. That's the point, that we are beating and that we are being wasted. Our lives are being wasted way before their time. Is the process that's this law of capital or this law of profitability. And the war in Gaza just is part and it's a principal part of the war against humanity. Why? Because there are two points of contention, two crucial points, geographic points: Taiwan and Israel. And Israel is much more important than Taiwan in basically making sure that the Arab, the Muslim and African masses, the Asian and African masses, are split down the line by this slice, near the Sinai Peninsula there. So it's a geographically strategic point that divides the world, divides the masses, and does not let them, divides Africa from Asia, and that's a big division. There are no roads between Africa and Asia, and the third world cannot trade with each other on land because of this. Apart from the fact that that the power structure is so tilted as a result of imperialist victories throughout history.
Hello everyone, I'm Rania Kalik and this is Dispatches. We know imperialism is the highest stage of capitalism, and today's late-stage imperialism has become more barbaric than ever, with a rising accumulation of death and waste. Increasingly, war and genocide aren't just a means to an end, but also part of the end in and of itself. So where does Israel's genocide in Gaza fit into this late-stage global imperialist order? What does it mean about the role of Zionism in the Middle East? How do the U.S. wars on other Middle Eastern countries factor in? How has China managed to escape this and the neoliberal rot that has consumed so much of the world? And how come some Western Marxists get it so wrong? Joining me to discuss this is Ali Khan.
All the social chauvinists are now Marxists. Don't laugh.
Author of many books, including Arab Development Denied, Dynamics of Accumulation by Wars of Encroachment, The Unmaking of Arab Socialism, China's Path to Development Against Neoliberalism, and his most recently published book, The Accumulation of Waste, A Political Economy of Systemic Destruction. Ali, welcome to the show. It's so good to have you on.
Thank you.
So there's so much I want to talk to you about, but I think a really good place to start is with your latest book. You've written a great deal, obviously, about imperialism and socialism in the Arab world and beyond. And in your most recently published book, you argue that we've reached a stage of imperialism that you call the accumulation, or capitalism, I should say, that you call the accumulation of waste. In your book, you write, imperialist war, in particular, the purest form of waste, is seen as value-creating activity whose saleable product is the premature death of labor. So can you explain to our audience,
situation
in layman's
going on
terms, what that means?
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, in all terms, it means the same thing. Well, it means that basically that if we look at the world now, and we've accumulated a lot of wealth, we've accumulated a lot of cars, refrigerators, and all this, these commodities, we call wealth, and we've done quite a good job. We've got a lot of wealth, since technology has improved, productivity has improved, and so on. So obviously, but at the same time, we've produced. Most reports say that the planet is heating up, and that it is catastrophic, and many pollutants and plastics and so forth. So alongside these commodities, we've produced a lot of a terrible amount of waste, and also, aside from, we've wasted a lot of nature. We've wasted so much of nature that if we think about it, if we think that the planet is not going to support life if we go on like this in the future, that means the situation now is pretty terrible. That means if we, any stock taking and assessment of the situation, we'll find that we have accumulated much more wasteful things than we have accumulated things that are useful. So, and much of the waste that we've accumulated, we've also, since we've wasted nature in the process of making commodities, people are part of nature, so we've basically wasted people as well. And it seems that, capitalist production throughout its history had required the waste of nature and people, more so people than nature. It's at the beginning, but as of late in this, century of the last century of high-speed industrialization, we've produced so much pollutants as well. So together, this waste amounts to a tremendous.
Heard yesterday that 40% of new clothes manufactured end up in landfills. Greatest economic system in the world, baby. Remember all the stuff like the Soviet Union, once communism is gone, they're going to get blue jeans. They're going to get blue jeans, all these good products. What an insanely stupid ideology and economic system. Another thing I was reading the other day as well is that, actually, I believe it was earlier today, I saw a stat that showed that Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, has a higher GDP than every single city in Germany, including Berlin. Which is it's amazing how wealthy America is, and how much wealth is produced, and how little that wealth filters down to the people doing the work to create the wealth. It's honestly incredible. And a lot of these people, if you're hey, I believe in an economic system where you got to keep more of that wealth that you're creating, where you got in the form of benefits, healthcare, education, a lot of people, even working class people would be no, please, it's true, right? It's true. Even the people that would benefit the most from that. It's true. It's a peasant mentality country. This is all the decades of propaganda that have created this peasant mentality. I've been watching a lot of It's Always Sunny, and I'm reminded how Frank and Charlie like to find jeans under bridges and boil them so they can wear them again. Just got to boil more denim. That to me is a more efficient economic system, I think. That's based around denim boiling.
Tremendous amount of damage that we've done to the planet and to society. And that represents the phenomena in which we're in now. We have to study this social relations, how we've done things in the past, to arrive at such a point where we are basically self-consuming relative to the good that we can.
Excuse me, we're talking about clothing waste. To clarify, that's never sold and end up in landfill. A lot of the sold clothing on top of the 40% does as well. The food waste as well. the amount of food in a country filled with increasingly hungry people, especially children, the amount of food that is just produced and wasted. And it's where it's literally illegal to redistribute that food to people that need it. It is beyond insane. It's like, I don't even know. It's sociopathic. It's fucking crazy. So it's such a great system. Look at all the stuff that we make, all the treats, the clothes, the products, the food, and it's just being created and just going right in the garbage, going right into a fucking landfill. And the people that live in this amazing, prosperous, wealthy society of all these resources have less and less and less every single year. I did see the priest that got the citation for keeping his church open all night because of the cold. Like, what is this country? This is a country that's like, it's a religious, it's a Christian country. And then when Christians actually act like Christians are supposed to act, it's like, no, not like that. Not like that. Don't do that. That's actually illegal. You had to say nothing of the way that the food is created halfway around the world and then shipped there. Yeah. Only to be wasted. Fucking insane.
Can do. We appear to be, self-consuming. Because if the planet is not going to support life and the water levels are going to rise and so on, that could only mean that that we've arrived. This phenomena is actually the end result of capitalism, and capitalism, of course, is headed by the Western civilization. It's colonialism. Europe and now the United States, the heir to Europe, were at the helm of history. They were in charge of making everything. And throughout this idea of, this process of making more wealth, more commodities that they sell for profits, not that they make them to make society better or to help, improve, the conditions in nature or the metabolism between man and nature and so on. Capital makes things to sell for profits, and since it regulates itself because it is in power, it makes everything. It cares less for the damage it imparts onto society. It lets society cover the damage, and so when addressing issues of social science, when we want to know why have we gotten to this position. When we want to address this, we have to look at the phenomena. I mean, most studies, people say, look, capitalism has produced much wealth. It is very progressive. Yeah. Well, that cannot be said anymore, right? And if it cannot be said anymore, we want to know why did we arrive to this point? Were we always like that? And in my research, of course, I find the obvious, which is, right, yes, we were always like that. We were always destroying people and nature to make money. And we have destroyed far more people and nature in the process of making money than is necessary. So much so that we are now, causing diseases and, we're probably causing the planet to fall into a position that it will no longer be able to support life. And so the whole idea that capitalism is progressive and, that we should be better capitalists than the third world appears to have been a chimera, appears to have been a joke, rather, you see. And many people don't say these things, but capitalism is not a sausage that can be, saying, I'm going to take this end of the sausage, you take this end of the sausage. Capitalism is...
Yeah, absolutely, Matt. Take China's numbers out and capitalism is objectively failing. All the shit about lifting people out of poverty that all the neoliberals like to look at, that's where it's all coming. That's where the people are being lifted out of poverty.
And the social process. And it's governed by, the relation that, very simple relation. I want to make profit. And if I can make profit at any cost, or I can shift my cost to society, I'll make more profits. So how do I reduce cost? I reduce cost if I pay very low wages, if I don't pay for the trees I cut, if I pollute the environment without paying for the environment, and so on. This is the source of my profit. And so this has been always the case. This has been always the case. And if you have that law of profitability, that idea that I want to make money at any expense, commanding the world, then of course we're not going to be able to stop either the social or the environmental disaster. So there's this relationship, which is, you can call capitalism. I make money at any cost, and I exclude the rest of the, capital. Let's call it capital, and I exclude the rest of society from the gains I make, or I just make things because I want to sell them. I'm not concerned whether they're going to harm people. That aspect of things is absolutely, how should I say, impossible to sustain. I mean, and there isn't enough work to disclose that the environment will not be solved by basically talking about, zero pollution or paying trillions to the people that have suffered from it or something like that. That's not going to solve the problem, because if your profit's always going to depend on the amount of damage you do to society and nature, then there is no way to fix the problem unless you fix that social relationship that organizes all of social life, that organizes the reproduction of life. And unfortunately, this can only be done through planning. And of course, planning was conducted by, people, socialist economies, and socialist economies are the antithesis of the system that reproduces by waste. But these have been so much demonized, such that it is impossible to basically, especially people in the Western Hemisphere, to convince people in the Western Hemisphere that the market system does not work.
I'm reminded of that, if you remember that clip or not a clip, it was the tweet by that dipshit Benny Johnson going to Cuba and just like showing the grocery shelves with just like one kind of tomatoes and being like, oh, like Americans just can't understand the idea that there's just you purchase one brand of tomatoes or like one brand of whatever, and there's not 20,000 different choices. And he's pointing out like it's this crazy dystopian thing. You don't need to have like 8,000 different brands of these different products. That's not like what freedom and democracy is, to choose between all the different products, all the different versions of the exact same thing. Freedom is 50 different types of toothpaste. But no one making a living wage.
I mean,
or being able to afford housing.
It's not possible also to convince them, because they have been benefactors, relative beneficiaries of the system itself, because we live in a two-tier system where some people make a lot of money and some people don't make a lot of money, and of course the reason why the North makes much more than the South, it's because the South is exploited. We cannot have, and that's pretty much the case. We cannot have this. And the whole system is based on false ideas. Like you don't see the great amount of waste. You don't also see that the world does not have a crisis of scarcity.
Is that it gets to mercilessly exploit me, but I get toothpaste that reflects my individuality. Yeah. And like 800 different kinds of cereal made from corn with different cartoons on it, and which is like 25% sugar.
We can feed everybody. Most of the crises we have are crises of overproduction. In fact, the crisis of overproduction is always present.
Or high fructose corn syrup. So much. Excuse me.
And we can make people live better off everywhere, and so on and so forth. But this idea that
still corn.
So when I say that that there is waste, I'm not saying anything new. I'm just saying look at the phenomena. Look at what appears to be the most obvious thing, which we have wasted people and we have wasted nature since the onset of capitalism, which we trace back to something like 1500 or circa something like this, right? Until now, there's probably around 1 billion people that perished in colonial wars and other wars, and and the amount of plastics and the amount of pollution. So if we're looking at the achievement of civilization, which is the material of the material and spiritual achievements. So what we have is in terms of material achievements, we have a lot of dead people and a lot of pollutants. And in terms of spiritual achievements, we have a world which lives by chauvinistic ideology, reproduces by chauvinistic ideology. Because if you want to keep the other, very poor in order to take the resources from them, then you have to actually, devise a sort of ideology that says, look, that guy doesn't deserve it because of his gender, color, ethnicity, whatever. You devise the identity that suits, an ethic which is unethical, by which, the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. But it used to be, it used to be that sort of rich get rich and poor get poor. It used to be in sort of a bad but still benign compared to the situation now, because if we're saying that the planet is 1 minute to midnight, the course of the environmental disaster and the course of the political disaster that is unfolding, which could lead us to some
cheaper
sort
than any
of
point in history to accumulate millions of
what
microplastics in your body
these days. So this is not. No, it is no longer possible to accept that the poor stay poor and the rich stay, gain by making the poor poorer. And the system cannot function another way. The system cannot function in any other way. If somebody says we're going to have a Keynesian approach, oh yes, we're going to, be like dentists and we're going to fix, give more money here. That's not going to fix the situation, because giving money is in the power of those who print the money. The only power that prints the money is the power that pollutes, and it's the fact that its profits don't come from the sphere of circulation, from the printing of money. They come from
We're evolving into to a higher organism with all kinds of interesting plastics in our body now, and you people are complaining. That was totally free. All those microplastics were free. We're evolving into a higher life form, 25% plastic, and you people are complaining. Unbelievable.
The very fact that there are people who work and spend a lifetime at work, and instead of making something for themselves, they die early and they die poor, and they leave much of the work and much of the value they produce to capital. That's how profits are going to be made, and there is no other way about it. And this is a diametrical opposition. It's not going to be solved. It's a contradiction that's going to stay with us for a long time.
Ali, I want to use it as a point to kind of like focus a bit on the Middle East here, because what you're describing when you talk about essentially these people working their entire lives, dying younger in the Middle East, there's very much, the way imperialism functions, there's a lot of people dying. So I'm curious if you can relate what you're talking about to the way imperialism functions in the Middle Eastern region specifically. And I do eventually want to get to what's happening in Gaza. But I guess here I'm talking a bit more generally about U.S. wars in the region. There's been these catastrophic wars that have killed millions of people. Syria, Iraq, Libya, Yemen, so destructive, like in what you're talking about in terms of killing people, in terms of killing culture, killing spirituality, all of these things that sort of, how does that imperialism fit into this accumulation of waste?
Yes. Another thing that people don't see, I said that people don't see the phenomena of waste. That basically when we say the planet is going to not be able to support life in the near future, well, it's going to be difficult to support life, then we're saying that we are in a terrible situation as it is right now.
Tell the Bill what's up.
It's not, it has the issue, the disease has metastasized. It's pretty bad, and it's in the same way. Another symptom of that, another another phenomenal case is the structural genocide of the system. Because when we have enough to make everybody live better off, because we produce too much, and yet we have people dying of hunger, this sort of the wasting of people in that way is called, and the other things that that make people miserable. That's called a structural genocide. That occurs all the time. If we, there's one food rapporteur once says that if you count to 4 or 5 seconds, there's a child under 10 who dies from hunger, unnecessarily dies from hunger. So the structural genocide is internal to capital, and it's there all the time. And there's also the direct genocides of capital. It's all a process of waste. We're wasting people before their time. And we're going to waste them also through war. War is also a matter. War is sort of utter waste, pure waste. Like, if we're looking for the purest waste, it's like, there's a German philosopher who put it this way. He says, well, if you put a lot of work and money in machines and in people, and then you throw them into war and you destroy them, that's just wasting resources. And so the system appears to have developed as of, in this day and age, to be able to sell the destruction, to be able to peddle the destruction as an industry and sell the destruction. So in war, what does war produce? It produces, it's like a structural genocide, but it's much faster. Structural genocides ends people's life before their due times. They're supposed to live to 50, 60, 100 on average, but they live to 40 or 30 or 40 or something like this. Well, in war, it's pretty much a much more dense situation of premature death. So in the region you are talking about, some estimates put, it's in the millions. The millions with, there are different estimates, but in the millions of people dying, and of course they died. It's war kills, and that means it prematurely. There are many more premature dead in the region, many more wasted people. And war produces the premature death. War hires, war is a factory-like situation. You have a machine, and then you hire a waged soldier a waged worker who's a soldier. You give him the machine, and you tell him to produce death. And so death is cells, and it's a very big item of sale. It's a very big item of sale because when you have when you have everything, under capitalism, we know everything is put up for sale. There's commodification, and if it's put up for sale, there's a price on everything. Everything has a price, and the price, of course, is a liquid in a complex structure. So there is spot price and future price. There's implicit price, explicit price. There's the price of the wage of a woman, for instance, nursing babies at home, which is something of a negative price, a very low price or something like this, a very low wage. And so everything is sort of priced in the system. And if you make, the more you commodify, if you commodify life and waste life, if you commodify nature and waste nature, you're actually getting the prices of life and nature intermeshed with the whole structure of prices from which profits originate. So if you pollute, for instance, right? If you pollute, you're going to cause diseases, and the medical bills are going to grow, and people are going to pay for the medical bills. There are prices for the pollution. And it's the same. If you go to war, you kill at a faster rate than pollution, probably. And there are prices for the dead, which are the earnings of the financial sector that bought the bonds in order to fund the war because it had too much.
Wow.
You have a situation where if you shorten lives, you make profits. You shorten life with pollution, because in the end, people who live a shorter life on average cost less, because they live shorter lives. You don't have to pay much for their pensions, for their schooling.
Okay,
that's why there are austerity programs.
So let me ask you this. So this is when we talk about what you're saying. The primary reason for imperialism in the Middle East is, of course, securing resources, right? Like oil, most importantly, oil. So does the sort of a profiting off of death that you're talking about, is that a part of an industry that's created by the primary reason for being there, which is the oil and the resources? Or does that then start to become the primary thing? Like why, what's imperialism's main function in the Middle East? Is it creating more wars so that we can sell more weapons so weapons companies can make money? Or is the primary reason securing the oil and the stuff is just the other death and accumulation of death is like extra profit?
And what, am I muted? I'm not muted. Okay, I'm not muted. Yes, Fiddler on the Roof when it says the wartime economy makes the stock market line go up. And that's amazing too, right? Because it's like we see all these people right now making these cases that like the economy is doing great. The Will Stancils of the world, the David Pacmans of the world. David Pacman. I saw he had a big viral clip the other day saying like, I know the economy is going good because I look at the data. And it's just like this denial of we always want to listen to people's lived experience unless those people are saying like, the economy sucks, according to me, and my inability to afford housing and groceries. But they're like, look at the lines, look at the graphs, look at these graphs, look at the unemployment graph. And we've talked about like people that were on unemployment benefits getting kicked off those benefits and going out back into the workforce. And then the unemployment goes down and they go, oh, look, the economy is just doing so great. Look at the stock market. Look at all these indicators that we have to show how the economy's cooking. Bidenomics is just killing it. And meanwhile, average everyday people are still just struggling to get by, are unable to afford a home, are getting less and less when they go to get groceries. And then you have these like technocratic dipshits just pointing to all these different lines and graphs and charts to be like, no, you're wrong. You are wrong for thinking that. Look at this graph. Look at this chart. Aggregate data hides the extremes that create the averages. It's really maddening, this whole phenomenon.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, first of all, this is the extraction of oil, copper, whatever around the world, and even, timber or...
Okay.
Never exists alone. You have people where there is oil, and you have people where there is copper.
You can't afford groceries, but look at this Venn diagram. Which feel pretty silly now.
You have people who work with nature, and these peoples are entwined with nature. They're nature themselves physically, but they're also subjects of nature because they have to work with nature to produce their own lives. I have to dig the land to make a produce of sorts, right? So there is never a land without people, or a land without resources without, people. And so the first thing that imperialism, this intensification of capital, what is imperialism? It's, hyper making money. It's an intensification of capital. I want, to make money at any cost. And that's the law of profitability, right? So when you have something like that occurring, the first thing you're going to extract is the people, not the oil. You're going to extract the people. You're going to make sure that the people are beaten into submission in order to give you the resource that they have for cheaper prices. And that, so the industry of extractivism is reified. It's made into, there are things dealing with things. But such is not the case. In the Arab world, in the Arab region, in the Arab Iranian region, there is oil, but there is a high price to pay for that oil because people have to surrender. They cannot be in command of that resources and negotiate a higher price to get a better life and so on and so forth. Right? So you must
neoclassical economics effectively. Who can best lie
so
to assuage the oligarch's guilt?
And then, so you make a war, and the war itself.
Did Rania leave Lebanon? That's a funny pause face. I think she came to the U.S. for a little bit. She did this event the other day, but I think she's still based in Lebanon, though. All the hourly wage increases are here with me laughing, just outside of the frame. There we go.
You have the oil, you're getting the oil cheap, and you're making money out of the war as well, because the war is also paid for, and it's an industry, right? So when you kill people, you produce dead people in war, you are making, money off the productivity of war, the idea that you make that. And then you extracted lives, you extracted the oil, and you made money on the extraction of life. You made money on the extraction of oil. And what matters in the end, there's a spin-off, a third situation in which, because you win a war against, the poor people in the third world, be they Arabs or Africans, or something like this, these working classes, they're masses, they're poor people is not the right word to say. They're masses who have been beaten into submission. And historically been beaten into submission. I mean, they can't breathe, really. I mean, you would say you can't breathe. It's like there are 900 or something military bases and so many, I mean, if you say anything, you're going to pay a high price. So in such a situation, when the US or Europe, win wars against, extract lives and extract resources through wars, what you're going to have is their power is going to increase. They're going to, on the international stage, they're going to say we're much more powerful. And if they say they're much more powerful, their ideas are going to become much more powerful as well. And if their ideas, what are their ideas? What is this, spirit of the rational man of the West? What is it? It is an idea that says, look, we have people here that want to protect their way of life. They're living much better. They're better cultured. They eat with a fork and a knife, and they listen to operas. While the others, are sitting under coconuts or, drinking tea in the deserts. So, they're much better. And, and on the whole, they're Muslims or they're Africans or they're, Buddhist or Hindus or whatever. And, they're just, that's the essence of liberalism. If we, the essence of liberalism, it's great to have a slave, but if, why? Because the slave is a danger to us if he doesn't become like us. And for the slave to become like us, we must, destroy many of, the culture of barbarism that houses those slaves. And so that's still the same, I mean, if you, the whole issue, I mean, of Islam and Islamophobia, and we don't want immigrants.
Well, that's a fantastic segue to focus in on Gaza a little bit, because I want you, Ali, to explain to me, how does Israel's US-backed genocide in Gaza fit into the context of this capitalist, imperialist world order? In other words, how does this genocide in Gaza serve imperialism?
Well, the whole issue, I mean, it's, the occupation of Palestine and, the rise of the settler colonial state is not difficult to understand. It's there, for everybody to see as facts proceeding in history. I mean, what you have is you have a native population residing there. Then you have Europeans who are going to come, and say, look, we want to establish another homeland on this homeland by evicting and ethnically cleansing these people. And the way, they say we're here to advance Western civilization. It's not much of a civilization to advance. If you think about the waste that has been produced and the death and the pollutants, I'd be ashamed to say I belong to a Western civilization. But still, well, look, we're here to advance Western civilization. We'll be protecting you. And of course, protect. This is a system of continuous genocides and massacres. The genocide is structured in the system. Count, 1, 2, 3, 4, somebody died, a child died. And, if you count the number of deaths from diseases unnecessarily and all this, from the misery, and the fact that people could live a lot longer relative to the technology and the resources that we have at this time. Yet in most of the third world, they live to around 50, 60 years old. That's premature death.
Well, yeah, Ali, real quick, just to give one statistic to go with what you're saying, I actually did not know this, but only 3%, before this current genocide, only 3% of people in Gaza made it to age 65. Isn't that crazy? I mean, you'll believe that easily, but that blew my mind. But
right.
please
I've seen figures. I've seen figures. I don't know this particular figure, but I've seen figures. Of less than 50 years old of longevity in some parts of the third world. So it is. It is a situation where we're going to protect the Western civilization, and in order to do so, and they say bluntly, these people are not going to accept us. The Arabs are not going to accept, this situation. So we have to fight them all the time. So it's a condition of constant war. And we have to fight them all the time. So what do they, to what, logically, to what issue do they contribute? They contribute to war, which is the extractivism of human lives, which is quite a profitable industry. And they make it, they make the power mesh of Europe and the US, this is something we call imperialism, much stronger. So
I don't know how any American could feel pride knowing what is publicly available and declassified by their own government. Amazingly, I find right-wingers are kind of fascinating to study how their minds work, where they kind of hate the government, but also seem to believe every bullshit myth that is told about America and what it stands for and what its values are. It's really amazing, isn't it? It's like they simultaneously, don't the government lies to you, man. They're always lying to you. And it's like, well, the government is the one that told you that communism and Marxism was bad and evil. And they're like, yeah, see, I hate it. 1 bajillion people killed. USA, hurrah! Just like firing guns into the air. It's like, it seems like you want to believe the government about some things, but at the same time you suggest that it's like the government is inherently wrong and corrupt and untrustworthy. They hate the government but love the state. It's really fascinating, isn't it? Fascinating people. It is the height of derangement. It's true. It's bizarre to me.
It can dictate its terms upon the third world. It can say to Africa, look, we're winning everywhere and we can do the same to you. And so you better give us the cocoa and the coffee and anything you have for a very cheap price. We don't care if you're not going to have enough to eat, because we just want that, because we're selling that to a market that we have in the north that's going to buy it from us. Or, it has, ramifications in the south, but essentially phenotypically white and in the north, right? Mainly phenotypically white. So you have that situation, and so Israel is pretty much, as a colonial settler project, is pretty much an extension of imperialism.
Someone on Reddit yesterday told me he couldn't be fascist because he was libertarian.
Say,
wonderful.
Like Professor Dana says, their God is playing real estate or something like that. But that's just so just it's too much to absorb. I mean, we
rights can absolutely blame climate change on the gays and China
Israel's
as well.
An extension of U.S. imperialism.
Don't forget about that,
right? Which is a very basic concept that I think makes sense, meaning that the role of Zionism in the region is to reinforce and be like the police for U.S. imperialism. Then, by basic logic, would that suggest that those fighting the Israelis militarily are actually fighting U.S. imperialism?
Oh, yes, absolutely. I mean, they're the same mess you can see from the Gaza situation, right? The war and the atrocities that are committed in Gaza are under the surveillance and protection of Germans, French.
I'm not sure what that was, Dr. Maggot,
and so on. So this is not. It's not a project. They know that this is their project, and this is and they say it costs us less than the Sixth Fleet in the Mediterranean. And Joe Biden, this thing that says it costs us so little, it's a good investment, and so they it's so obvious. I mean, there is no need to cover up the situation. What I'm saying here is that it's imperialism is about making money, but by making people poorer and by shortening their lives. And what Israel and the United States do, Israel is a condition of constant war of aggression. Because if you want to basically say, I'm going to displace people from this land and stay here. That means we have to kill everybody who belongs to this. And what do the Palestinians? The Palestinians are Arabs. They belong to the Arab nations. They're Muslims. They belong to the Muslim nation. They're also a part of the international proletariat. So they belong to the international proletariat, which is basically much of humanity. So you're basically, you're warring against the totality of the world population by saying, I want to settle here and kick these aboriginals, the natives out. And
I think that was just you, Dr. Maggot.
And
There's
so on.
some kind of Chinese tracking in your
constant
computer.
war is constant profits. If you think about it, let's,
You're being
cut to the chase.
backtraced.
Constant war is constant profits because the system makes money out of war, and it makes a tremendous amount of money out of war. War is not simply another industry in the system, mind you, right? This is a pretty important thing because if you redress power relations, you cannot make a chewing gum by getting Arab gum from Sudan if you don't have the power structure to dictate to Sudan from all the wars that you exercise, that I want the Arab gum from you for a very cheap price. Mm-hmm. So it's not like it's all limited, it's all interconnected. The power mesh is interconnected. And it's a power mesh that's also, worse yet, it's a power of ideas. This powerful class also creates ideas, ideas that reproduce it. Time and again, so the system reproduces basically by ideas that say, look, the other guy, if he can't develop and he can't live, it must be a fault in his culture, a fault in his religion, a fault in his tradition, or something, a fault in the weather. You must create some fault. But the point is, it's people, China has proven, for instance, that one of the poorest countries in the world can develop and thrive when it's sovereign, it has the capacity to defend itself, and it defines who can mingle in its territory and who cannot, That sort of example of sovereign development is there. So we know that we cannot develop in the developing world because we are beaten all the time. That's the point, that we are beating and that we are being wasted. Our lives are being wasted way before their time. Is the process that's this law of capital, or this law of
the mask of humanity falls from capital. It has to take it off to kill everyone, everything you love, all the hope and tenderness in the world. It has to take it off just for 1 second to do the deed. Yeah, or we're the focus on imperialism as well. We're talking about how Israel's genocide serves U.S. imperialism. It turns men into bloodthirsty beasts. We're seeing that now in more stark black and white terms than maybe at any time in our lives.
Profitability.
And the Europeans.
Gaza.
Well, no, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Finish what you were going to say about Gaza. I just wanted to make a silly point, but go ahead.
Yeah, the war in Gaza just is part. It's a principal part of the war against humanity. Why? Because there are two points of contention, two crucial points, geographic points: Taiwan and Israel. And Israel is much more important than Taiwan in
yes, I do believe that,
making sure that the Arab, the Muslim and African masses, the Asian and African masses, are split down the line by this slice.
Which is something that seems like a lot of certain people, I don't know how to describe them, anarchists or ultra leftists or whatever it is. It's what they forget, right? Is that when they criticize China, for example, how can you say that China is socialist? How can you say that they're communist? They still have a state. They have a state. They have money. They have capitalism in their country. They have borders. This USSR, it had borders. It had a state. It had this centralized, planned economy. How can you say that it's socialist? But as long as imperialism exists, you need to have a state, as we've talked about, and that's what Marx says, and Lenin spells this out as well. According to Marx, the state, it doesn't just go away overnight. It has to wither away. It will wither away gradually, eventually, over time, over years, over decades, over centuries. As long as imperialism is still a threat, though, you need a state to defend yourself. To defend yourself from being overthrown, subverted, destabilized, all this stuff. Heard this from Commie Alex Jones. That's right. I was happy to bring that character back recently. That was good. But it's true. It's true. That's the easy answer. How can you have a state? How can you be socialist and have a state? It's like, you need a state. You need a state. As long as that's the threat, as long as imperialism is a threat, as long as imperialism is the primary contradiction. Yeah, it almost is like that. Yeah.
Near the Sinai Peninsula there. So it's a geographically strategic point that divides the world, divides the masses, and does not let them, divides Africa from Asia, and that's a big division. There are no roads between Africa and Asia, and the third world cannot trade with each other on land because of this. Apart from the fact that that the power structure is so tilted as a result of imperialist victories throughout history and the killings of imperialists.
Yeah, that's actually really interesting that you just said that Israel's more important than Taiwan. I was just going to make a point about, and this is just a rhetorical point for fun, but it would be funny could you imagine if we talked about Europeans the way they talk about us? Although it would be a little bit more true about Europe, something's deeply culturally wrong if all you know how to do is destroy countries in the global south.
Yeah, you should talk about Europe like that.
It's like a cultural deficiency.
It's a sick culture.
That said,
it's a sick mentality.
I wanted to ask you before, because I do want to also get to China. But I wanted to ask you about
and
Western
there's stuff about China that I want to talk about as well.
You've written about this. There's a chapter in your book, the recent book Accumulation.
And in fact, let me just take a short break here. I'm 2 hours into the stream. I'm going to be here about another hour and 15 minutes or so. I'm going to make sure to link this video in the chat as well. So you can make sure, I'm going to get back to that, but just to make sure that you give that a like and you follow Breakthrough News and support Rania's work and the whole team there. But 2 hours into the stream, so I just wanted to quickly remind people to please, if you can, subscribe to TRRS. Got to make the little number go up every single day, as you know. So if you can, if you enjoy this program, if you like being part of the community, if you like the content and the conversations that we have on here each and every day, please subscribe. If you can, it's $4.99 per month to subscribe. Get all the tiny little images. Get all the, join the community, join the Friendship Triangle community. You can also do so totally free of charge with an Amazon Prime account, which you can convert to a Twitch Prime sub. That's totally free. Every little bit helps. You can also give bits or gift subs or tips or whatever. It all is very, very helpful. It's the only way that I'm able to do this show each and every day, is if people do subscribe to the program, and I'm able to meet that sub goal every day. So if you can, please support me and the work that I do on here by subscribing to the channel or gifting subs. It means a lot. It really helps me out a lot, and it's much appreciated, and we become friends after. And that's the pitch. We'll get back to this video in just a few moments. I just wanted to take a quick moment just to remind people to please subscribe if you can, if possible. You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this. Svidler, thank you very much for the gifted sub. Who doesn't want to become friends with this guy? I've been not doing that bit lately. It's worked so many times that I'm scared that the one time I do this guy bit, and I'm going to be stuck there for like 5 minutes, and we're going to be in this like game of psychological chicken. Thank you again, Svidler. I was actually trying to find a funny sound effect here, but yeah, that's the pitch. If you can, please support this show. Sorry. I really need a proper soundboard. So I can really drive those home. I was just trying to do the awkward cough. Bit. Are there any other fine folks that want to support this program? Can we get into the double digits before we move on and go back to the video? Plenty more to discuss here. Plenty more interesting conversations to be had today. Does anyone else want to subscribe to this program? TRRS, the show that you're watching right now, right at this very moment. Who would talk you through all this if I wasn't there? Exactly.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Joe, thank you for the gifted sub.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
We're friends now, right?
And thank you, Greasy Groob 69.
This is some guy, Rob Russo, some leftist based in Canada. I was turned on to this sick individual, and I found this.
For the 8 months of Prime. Thank you, Greasy Groob. And yes, we are friends. Thank you, Dala Bill, for the gifted sub as well. And welcome, Majority Report Raiders.
You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through
welcome,
all this.
Majority Report Raiders. Hello. It's nice to see you. It's me. It's Rob.
You can
nice
count
to
on
have
me.
you.
You're going to have good old
here.
Rob to talk you through all this.
Sikalufakis, thanks for the gift sub as well. I really appreciate it. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Thanks to Majority Report for the raid. I really appreciate that. Folks, if you're just tuning in for the first time, please smash the follow button. Please hit the follow button. Costs you nothing at all to hit the old follow button. I'm 104 followers away from 10K here on Twitch. So it would help me out so much. It would help me out so much if you just pressed the little follow button. Costs nothing at all. Costs nothing at all. And look at this guy. Don't you want to follow this guy? Look at me. You know, I'm not even alive and I hit it. Good. Thank you, Super Sorceress. Thank you for that. And you can be part of the community. You can get notifications when I go live. You can chat. You can join the chat. You can say things in the chat if you like. Why do you want me to smash my phone screen? Is Rob in the pockets of big glass? That's right. It only works if you really hammer it. Can we talk about China? Yes, we can, and we're going to. I think there's going to be more conversation in this video that we're watching about this, and I've got some stuff that I want to talk about after as well. Says things in chat. There you go. Wonderful. Look at that. Oh, and listen, while I've got you here, folks, if you just came over from the raid, is anyone here watching right now? I'm in Montreal. Okay, that's where I'm located, in beautiful Montreal, Quebec, Canada. And if anyone else is in Montreal or the surrounding area nearby, we've got an event tomorrow. We got an event. I'm doing a live event tomorrow. Which I'm calling up right now at this very second. Doing a live event tomorrow. I don't know how many of you are nearby or want to join this thing, but it's going to be really fantastic. It's myself and my colleagues Nashwa Lena Khan and Paris Marks. We're going to be talking about Canadian media and how it sucks and it's bad. It's going to be a really good time. It's tomorrow at L'Annex in Centre Saint-Jacques. It's in the basement of a church on St. Catherine Street, right around the corner from Concordia University. That's tomorrow evening, doors at 7, live event. Just so you know. Most Nickelodeon live action things came from Canada. I did not know that. I did not realize that. Also, I don't want to be too demanding here from people that just came into from this raid. We do have more of this video to watch and more discussions to be had as well. We do have a little hype train going as well. So I know I gave you the whole spiel about following the stream, which is free, but what is not free, but is also really helpful, is if you subscribe to this program. If you have $4.99, you can subscribe to this show. You can support this show and this community. You can join the community. You can get all the tiny little images that are available.
On me. You're gonna have good old
on
Rob
this channel
to talk you through all this.
Top Scruffy, thank you for the gifted sub as well. And as Joe110 points out, it's totally free if you have an Amazon Prime account. It's totally free to convert that to a Twitch Prime sub completely free. I mean, it's not free because you're paying for Amazon Prime, but you can subscribe to this show for free, which really helps me out. I'm pretty sure Canada's just a bunch of hockey rinks surrounded by polar bears speaking French. That is true. And look, I just got a hockey haircut too. Look at this. Why can't I ever figure out the logistics of this? Look at this. Look at this now. Is this worth $5? Is this worth $5 of your hard-earned money? Hot mullet action. That's right. Anyway, frickin' Mario Lemieux over here. It is Lemieux-esque. That is true. It is Lemieux-esque. Anyway, let's go back to this video. Thanks, everyone. I'll try to make one final push towards making the little number go up towards the end of the
We simply
stream.
use the computer to mark
Joe,
up the size of the account.
Bits. In the words of the late, great Billy Ray Cyrus, business in the front, party in the back.
That's right, Joe. Thank you very much for the 200 bits. I appreciate it. If anyone else wants to subscribe to the show, I would appreciate that. It's very, very helpful. Now let's go back to this video. This is a video from Breakthrough News called Accumulation of Death, How Israel's Genocide in Gaza Serves U.S. Imperialism with Professor Ali Kadri.
Of waste about the Western Marxist position on war. And you speak of this sort of the dominant,
Billy Ray Cyrus
I'm quoting you, the
is
dominant currents
dead.
of Western Marxism.
I think he's alive and well.
So I'm curious, who are these particular Marxists you're speaking of, who are aligned with NATO? And
the social
have their
chauvinists.
positions shifted at all with the genocide in Gaza? Do you think they understand the Western imperialist
Lenin really just
destruction
nailed all this
of
shit
Gaza?
a long time ago.
And I'll extend that to Iraq, Syria,
All the
Yemen,
social
Lebanon,
chauvinists are now Marxists.
Or is there like a similar sort of line that you could, or a similar thread between how they are about, or how their view is about NATO and how it is about the Middle East?
Well,
it was close to Yarmir Yagers and Joe.
And I said at one point, something pretty obvious, right? That you have people in power that reproduce in the Western world, that reproduce by demonizing the other. They have to say that the other is insufficient. They need theories. They need many theories for this.
Give me a theory.
Usually, the theory that's represents the contrarian theory to the system that says, look, you can't let profits guide, or the laws of capital guide, things, because it seems that we are making money out of our self-dissolution. And well, how do we make money out? If you look at the planet, we are a planet that's going to die, and we're still making profit. So we're making profit from the death of the planet, the very destruction of the planet.
Cool. Love that for us.
Because we know that is ipso facto true. That is true after, of the fact itself, and after the fact, ex post facto, after the fact. We know that this is true because the planet is in such a situation. It is the phenomena that we need to explain. And so the people in power, they're not, it doesn't take much to know that, you need to undermine the theories that are going to contradict our theories. And since we are in power and we have many platforms of media, many platforms of culture, universities, and so forth, we must, and most of the all the international organizations almost, right? So, we must deploy all of these apparatuses that we have in the production of ideas that basically undermines any theory that says that what we are doing is wrong. Mm-hmm. So the war of ideas is pretty important because you want to make people, accept, the dominant ideas. What are the dominant ideas? I'm going to accept that the planet should be destroyed because we're living in a world of scarcity, and the market is the best thing that we have, and to make profits, and it creates jobs because communism failed and socialism failed.
And once again, like, we're seeing that put into practice, these market-based solutions to climate change. Where? Not in America, not in Canada, in China. In China, that's where these things are actually happening. And they're making this transition to become the largest EV producer. They're making this massive, massive investment. But that's the thing. It's not entirely the market. It's not the free market, because you have the state, which uses capitalism as a mode of production, but doesn't have a capitalist society. There's a big difference between these things that sometimes we lose sight on. It's not just about having capitalism as a part of your economic system, but having a capitalist mentality for the people in the state and the ruling class and the citizens as well. So you have them doing these huge, massive investments, billions and billions of dollars into renewable energy, into solar power and wind power, producing these kinds of new batteries for EVs and other things like this. They're absolutely destroying everyone else. Well, that's the thing. If we don't destroy the planet, China will. We might as well destroy it faster. We get more of it before them. When we look at China's emissions, carbon emissions, it's because they make all our stuff. That's the primary reason that their emissions are high. And per capita, they are low. Per capita, they're significantly higher here in Canada and the United States. The reason China's emissions are so high is because we offshored our entire manufacturing industry to China and other nations in the developing world. But they're actually, despite large carbon emissions in China, they're still putting together this massive, massive investment into actually transitioning into more renewable forms of energy. The kind of thing that if in our fantastically wealthy society, if we had started making this transition in like 1980, when we knew that this stuff was going on, we knew climate change was happening. If we had started making this kind of transition, we would be in pretty good shape now. We would be in pretty good shape. But unfortunately, that has not happened. But China is absolutely kicking our ass in actually not only talking about climate change, because we love to talk about it while not actually doing anything about it, but actually making a meaningful investment into transitioning into a different, more efficient and more sustainable energy system.
And we look at the Soviet Union, it failed. History is presented like a football match. They lost, we won. So, we go home and watch TV. So it's like that, really. And so it's not like a continuum where after the Soviet Union fell, you had a disastrous situation in the East, in Eastern Europe.
It's still not too late to reverse climate change. It just takes, like you said, meaningful change by government systems on markets. But that's the whole problem, though. Oh, sorry, I didn't even realize I didn't put the video back on. Excuse me. That's the whole problem, though, is that in the West, in our capitalist societies here, we're not doing that. We're not having meaningful change. We're having a lot of talk. We're having a lot of talk and rhetoric from people like Justin Trudeau and Joe Biden about how they believe the science and they believe that climate change is happening, and we're so concerned, and we want to do this and we want to do that, but not actually doing the things that we say that we're going to do. We're setting this benchmark and this target, and we're just continuing to emit more and more every year, no matter what the rhetoric is, or no matter what benchmarks we're setting, or what kind of like global agreements like the Paris Agreement we're joining. It's just not happening. And this is a good point, head of Romaine. The reason it doesn't happen in the West is because the class composition of those guiding government policies. Yeah, because our governments are run by capitalists. You have the power of capital, which is much, much larger and greater than the power of the state. And in China, it is different. You have the state, which is in control of capital. And capital does what the state tells it to do, rather than in our society when it's the other way around. That's the big difference. And that's why I don't agree with this analysis when people say, like, China, why are you a socialist and you support China? They're capitalist. They're not. If they were capitalist, they would be engaging in economics in the same way we do, which they very, very clearly do not. There's a very, very clear difference in the values, the priorities, and the way the state functions, the way, capitalism is employed. You can only profit off climate change. You can't profit off a better world. Yeah, I mean, exactly. And, eventually, I'm sure, like, once the destruction gets enough, then we'll start, like, when it's too late, then we'll start thinking about ways that we can profit off of changing it. And we're going to end up, like, blocking out the sun or some shit like that. We're going to have, like, Exxon do the thing from the Matrix where they fill the atmosphere with chemicals that block the sun from hitting the earth. That's probably what our climate change solution is going to look like. And also, in addition to what China's doing, I talked about solar and wind energy and EVs and stuff, but transit, rail, transit. The investment and the infrastructure that has been built in China just for transit and rail alone, to say nothing of all the other big infrastructure projects, is like when you live in the West where we can't do anything, we can't build anything, we're completely helpless to ever fucking do anything. We're at the mercy of these like real estate developers and big corporations and whoever else. It's just unfathomable to see the level of infrastructure and development that has happened in China just over the last 10, 15 years, to say nothing of the last 30, 40 years. But it's like absolutely just astounding. And we live in the West and we just can't imagine it, because it's like there's no way. We make deals and we promise to build these infrastructure projects, and they go years over the length of time it's supposed to be, over budget. Look at Toronto. In Toronto right now, they've been building a rail line in the Eglinton line for like years now. They don't even know when it's going to be open. They literally are just like, we don't know. We don't know what to do. I don't know. That's our infrastructure projects in the West. It's really amazing, honestly. And again, this is why I'm fascinated with China, why I like to think and talk about China, and why I don't agree with this idea that China is capitalist. Because very clearly, it is a very different economic system. It's a very different set of values and priorities. It should be obvious to anybody. And that's why I think that's really fascinating, and something that we in the West should be learning from, rather than wagging our fingers and lecturing them about whatever it is, whether it's human rights or a Western liberal democracy, as if this is the only form of democratic government that exists. I mean, I think we should be talking to China, working with them, and learning from them, rather than starting World War III with them. Big shout out to Deng Xiaoping. I agree. He's our guy.
And so on, this remains so, I mean, the social conditions so much deteriorated. And whatever accomplishment the Soviet Union did, it did under conditions of hardships and Cold War and arms race and so forth. And so, and if people recall, many of the benefits that we have in the world today, like maternity leave and higher wages and all of this, this is a product of, there's a struggle between the two camps in the 20th century. So the war of ideas, when they realized that this war of ideas, that we don't want to lose the war of ideas, they deployed all their apparatuses, all their universities, and all their media to say, look, and they specifically.
I would agree with you, but I have stock in Raytheon, so my vote is for the war thing. Well, that's fair. That is fair. Yeah, so this is amazing. China and California announced their high-speed rail plans at the same time. They now have thousands of miles of rail lines that we have nothing to show for billions spent. And Dr. Maggot says California HSR began around the same time as China. One has benefited many private contractors and built almost nothing, and the other has massive, unbelievable amounts of actually usable trains. And also worth pointing out as well that this construction, this infrastructure, was privately subsidized. I get confused sometimes. Again, this is the big difference, right? That's our capitalist system. Publicly subsidized, privately profitable. And in China, it's the opposite. It's privately subsidized, publicly profitable. That should show that it's two completely different economic systems. And I've seen people like neoliberals here in the West be like, you think China's high-speed rail is so great. Well, it's not even turning a profit. These Chinese capitalists and industrialists that funded these big infrastructure projects, they're not making any profit from it. And it's like, what's the problem? What is the issue here? Why do I care? Why would we care about that? I don't care. Who cares? That's not something to criticize it over. Nice to find a stream of somebody fascinated by China as well. I talk about it with family and friends, and I feel a bit crazy sometimes because of the comical idea most people have about China. And a big reason for that is our media. Our media, which is also an arm of our state. Again, in Western liberal democracy, we talk about having a free press and free exchange of ideas. But when our state decides that it's time to turn on the propaganda knob to convince people that China is like the aggressive, evil enemy that we have to now prepare to fight rather than work alongside with and have an alliance with, a lot of people just believe that stuff, and they believe every single little horror story that comes out about it. Which we're going to get to, I think, in the context, there's stuff to talk about in the context of the Israel-Palestine stuff.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Plunger Man, thank you for the gifted sub. Svidler says a lot of Chinese Maoists exiled in Hong Kong criticize China as well. Not just white Westerners. I still think China should be supported and are clearly juxtaposed to Western economies and value systems, but we shouldn't idealize China. I think there's one thing about fetishizing or idealizing something, but also being materialist and realistic about it. Like I've pointed out before, I don't want to speak for anyone that's no longer around. And I know that there's socialists and Maoists in China that want China to be more, to press the socialism button more. And I do get that. My personal belief, though, is that were Mao alive today to see the progress that China has made since the late 70s, he'd probably say, and this is my opinion, but he would probably say, you know what, that's pretty good. We're doing pretty good. So that's kind of where I land on that. I mean, there's also a lot of like Ned funded dissidents and people that criticize all kinds of countries that are going to have all kinds of criticisms that they can talk about. That doesn't necessarily mean that they have the right idea for how things should be.
Targeted Marxism, because a recent interview with Gabriel Rockhill in Monthly Review recently explains the extent to which they have funded and deployed Marxists who were anti-imperial, pro-imperialist. That let us let us, for instance, attack Iraq because Iraq has a fascist government, and fascism is worse than imperialism. So let imperialism save people from fascism. That sort of argument that occurs everywhere.
No, it worked though. They did with Syria.
Yeah, in one way or another, So and so what you have is a situation where. They discovered that before they produce anything like a polluted commodity, any commodity is a polluted commodity. Anything, the napkin, anything produces much more pollution, and you have to beat up people and practically make them live shorter lives to consume what you are consuming. And all that cost, that social cost that's carried by society. All of that in order to say, look, let us we're now going, there is no alternative. The West is much more advanced and capitalism is progressive. Look where we are. And so, for them, they have to be like us. It's still the same thing, like the liberalism. If they're not like us, they're a danger to us. Mm-hmm. And if they're not like us and a danger to us, they can be slaves. That's the principal logic of liberalism. I mean, if you go back to John Locke, he was a slave owner.
But you point out numerous theoretical problems in their approach to the question of imperialism when we're talking about Western Marxists here. That it's, be it you call it empiricism, the lack of periodization of imperialism and so on. Could you explain to us the main difference between your approach and how they, meaning the Western Marxists who you're criticizing, approach the question of imperialism, if not, inter-imperialism?
Well, much of the approach, it all hinges on the idea that capitalism is progressive. That if you can't, it is better to be exploited by capitalism than
I'll be right back, folks. Just one sec.
Not to be exploited by capitalism, because if you're not exploited by capitalism, you sort of live in the forests and you are a hunter-gatherer. And when you're exploited by that, true, we bomb you a little bit, but we bring in a factory or two and we give you an oil well or something like this, and you're better off as a result of this. There is this, of course, this logic is absurd, because all these there is no such thing as you can't go back in time. Time for them is something that is homogeneous and quantitative, whereas time is qualitative. Time is the time in which people live. We live in a time where we could live to 100 years old, but we're living to 50 because, and it's not because of natural causes. In 1500 or 1000 BC or something like that, people lived to 30 because their nature and diseases could only let them live to 30. There was no other possibility. So this system, in comparison, is a far worse system than any system that has existed, because it actually deprives people of something. And that's essentially the definition of capital. It deprives people of the resources which they have produced. And the planet altogether is a single unit of production. There is nothing that could work if the planet wasn't integrated. We know that the planet is integrated because, if the Federal Reserve of the United States raises the interest rate, there could be, starvation or wars elsewhere because the indebted countries can't service their debts, or food prices rise because the commodity market, commodity prices rise in the commodity exchange, and so on and so forth. So the world is interlocked and interrelated in all aspects, in real production aspects, in technology aspects, and so forth. And the worst forms of capitalism, and the more are the best forms of capitalism, where we say that capitalism is least progressive and people are dying. That's where the most exploitation exists, because these people are giving all their labor in a shorter time span and leaving over their life a lot more to capital than profits, in surplus labor, in profits, and so well, surplus labor mediated into profits. It's not something. So it is really. The issue is time is of qualitative nature, and we need to and imperialism is actually intensified capital, And the best forms of capitalism for capital are not in the Nordic countries. These are formations that benefit from the power structure of capital, and their wages are a dividend based on the imperialist war as a result of the power structure that NATO and the United States provide. The issue is that the most exploitative is in the third world. Because if you think about it, the reason why the third world can't produce anything, does not have leisure time, cannot produce machines, because if you keep beating them up, the machines and all the knowledge is only going to be produced in Europe and in the United States. There is no historical potential for anything there to arise there, because they can't eat, they're at war constantly, and so on and so forth, right? So what is the reason then, we ask, if this is the case, right? If the only place where universities and knowledge and R&D can occur in Europe, and what is the reason? Is it because they're smarter than other people? They're smarter than Africans, smarter? No, they're not smarter. Unless, of course, they're racist, of course. But the point is, they got this possibility to develop the productive machine and the productivity and the leisure and so on, because they cannot allow anybody else to do that, because if everybody else does this, then if competing for profits will drive down their profits, will drive down their dividends. They want to take cheap things in order to make profits. And they're taking cheap things, they must take lives.
Yes.
And they must take lives, they make war. And if they make war, they make money out of war as well. So it's all, and if they pollute, they actually, if I'm an industrialist who pollutes, I make money out of the pollution. I make money out of the pollution because in two ways. First of all, pollution sells. Pollution is also going to cause people to get sick, and they're going to pay for medical care, which is when privatized, or society is going to cover the cost. And also pollution cuts lives, shorter. It's like a war on
yeah. And am I muted? No, I'm not muted. Do you appreciate that I'm actually checking this now? I actually checked to see if I'm muted now. I'm actually learning. I'm on season 4 of doing this show, and I'm actually learning to check whether I'm muted or not when I begin speaking. But Svidler, I think this is really an important point, and I appreciate it, because I know you're a bit more of a skeptic on this, but I think this is a really important point. China's also done more in terms of providing financing for development in the third world in a way that doesn't permanently trap the third world in debt, like the IMF and World Bank. I think this is one of the central reasons that I am also fascinated in China, and I think this is worth supporting. Which is amazing when you have people in the West that claim that, like, the Belt and Road Initiative is a debt trap, which is absolutely incredible, given that's our whole development model for these global South countries. And they have a very different model when it comes to helping these countries develop. And as we know, these global South countries, you can't just develop overnight. You need infrastructure. You need roads, ports, bridges. You need the ability to develop your resources. You need schools. You need power plants. You need water filtration centers. You need capital. You need capital investment. And that's the difference between what the IMF does, where the IMF will go to these developing countries and will give you your capital investment. But this is what you're going to do. You're going to change your economic system. You're going to eliminate social programs. You're going to give unlimited power to Western financial interests and multinational corporations to go in there and take the resources. And we're going to develop this infrastructure, but we're going to develop it in a way that just facilitates the taking of the resources, and that's all. And then meanwhile, these nations, when that was the only option, they had no choice but to take this kind of money, are completely financially handicapped to deliver better quality of life to the people that live there, because they owe massive amounts of money to the IMF. Whereas you have China coming into these places and saying, yes, we want the resources, where there's no obfuscation about that. They're very clear. We want the resources. In exchange for the resources, though, here's what we're going to do for you. We're going to build all these things that you need to develop and modernize your country. You look at a map of what the Belt and Road Initiative has built on the African continent, for example, and it's night and day, the version of what the IMF is offering, and the West has been developing Africa for hundreds of years, centuries, and it's been a purely exploitative process, or as our friend Walter Rodney teaches us, it's been deliberately underdeveloped for centuries now. And just in the last couple of decades, what China has done on the African continent is just completely night and day when you see this different approach. So that's what I mean. Not only domestically in China, that you see the different attitudes and the different mentality and the way of doing things, you see that in the way that they engage with the rest of the world as well. And I think that's something that's, again, if you're a socialist or a Marxist or whatever you call yourself here in the West, that's something that we should support. That's something that's really valuable. And we're seeing that pay dividends as well, in terms of helping nations resolve conflicts such as Saudi Arabia and Yemen, is a good example of that, and that's something that I think we should also be talking about when we talk about China and its economic system and the different kind of mentality that they have.
Potentiality of life, and so pollution makes money for them because the cost of the reproduction of society is lower, and it leaves more over the life cycle. Remember, you see, everything that the
thanks, Marty. The overall hegemony of one regime versus another as it takes control destroys itself from the inside. Well, I don't know. I don't really agree with that. You're putting out why does everyone need one state to be supreme over another? I don't think we need one state to be supreme over the other. What I think we should have, and what China and I think a lot of nations in the global south that are forming these new kind of institutions like BRICS, what they want is just multilateralism. That's all. They just want to be able to do business with one another. They want to be able to make deals that are mutually beneficial. But unfortunately, because of the primary contradiction of Western imperialism, that is not really an option. And that's the whole point, is that it's not that we need China to succeed over our state or over the United States or whatever, but unfortunately, as the primary imperialist power in the world, you need to have an alternative to that. And that needs to be dismantled and destroyed in order for us to advance as a global community. And right now, China represents the best hope of an actual challenge to that in our lifetimes, which we've not seen in our entire lifetimes. We have not seen this in our whole. It's been unipolar, American-led global world order in our entire lifetimes, and for the first time in our lives now, we're seeing an actual challenge to that. That's something that to me is really exciting. I think that's really exciting. And that's something that we should support.
Market economy and these people do is the ideas and the concepts they construct are weapons, are sort of chimeras. They're sort of fictions.
No, I get that.
Believe
I get
in.
that, Super Sorceress.
I went to the store and I bought a can of Coke. I paid $1.
I want to bring up one of the weapons they use in a very practical way. So this is just to follow up on what we're talking about. There is this tendency among this particular crowd of Western Marxists that we're discussing, especially, to describe the current historical moment that we're in as one featuring this battle between various imperialist countries, right? They'll draw on Lenin's work to tell us that Russia and China, and at times they'll even say Iran, are as imperialist as the US. And your work, you have taken the time to debunk this construct. So can you tell us more about what kind of acrobatic and theoretical gestures these people perform to reach these conclusions and their practical implications?
Right. Again, this goes back to the idea that capitalism is like a sausage, and you can have capitalism. There are social relations. Social relations are power relations. Power relations are ideas also, because ideas are powerful there. And so you have ideas that are reproducing reality, and these ideas are also in synergy with reality. They are formed on the basis of reality, and they change on the basis of reality. So you have this mix of real conditions developing and ideas developing together. And so what is the principal idea that is making the system tick? The principal idea is that you have this notion that you need to make money. You need to make things in order to make money and not to make useful things. And you need to shift the costs onto society. And it is the principal progenitors of these ideas is the Western Hemisphere. It's where these ideas of the market, that we need to make money, and they're competing with everybody. It's true that they're competing with everybody, but they have the weight of history behind them. They have something, they've accumulated so much power, and they made the stock of knowledge that they have formulated, absorbed by people, such that it is possible. People reflexively do what their knowledge wants them to do, without questioning, and so within the system, there are capitalists who basically are nationalist capitalists or socialists who negate the structure, who want to retain more of the wealth, right? But they have a different approach to retaining more of the wealth. They're not exercising this by demonizing others, by attacking others. They are, in a sense, protecting themselves from the barbarity of this system of waste that has been created by the West. And so they need to defend themselves against the people who say that there's sub-imperialism or what have you. Again, the sausage mentality is ridiculous. Why? Because they don't understand that there's a structure of power involved in reproducing the conditions of waste, the conditions of capital. And that structure of power, that pyramidical structure of power, has the United States and its allies atop the triad, Europe, Japan, the United States, sitting atop the pyramid that is exercising this. And the nations have the right to defend themselves against the aggression of that system. And that's what these people don't see, obviously. They see capitalism as, they reify it. They see it as money moving to Asia, therefore Asia is becoming richer. Asia is imperialist. Russia is imperialist. China is imperialist. Or Iran or something for Turkey. You can divide this up to the point where the grocery store owner could become an imperialist.
Oh man, I love that. I gotta use that joke sometime. That's a good one, Ali. I guess we're just gonna spend some time beating up on this particular group of Western Marxists whose individual names shall not be named, but we know who we're talking about, and I think a lot of people watching do. But I want to ask, how central was the war in Syria in the last decade and shaping the political landscape?
Which all these people are like, you must,
and how
must back the U.S. on this.
I want to ask how clear the positions of numerous Western Marxists become as the war on national sovereignty of the Syria Arab Republic was unleashed by the U.S. and NATO. Why?
Who do we think she's talking about? I think she's talking about. Oh my God! I keep getting Rania in the worst pause faces. I think we don't need to name names, but I think we're talking about the we must arm Ukraine Marxist. We cannot ever be seen as supporting Assad Marxists. Marxists. I think it's kind of those people. We must criticize China as equally as we criticize America Marxists, like those people. The NATO Marxists, that's right. And half of them don't even, I don't even know if they even refer to themselves as that. Anyone associated with Behind the Bastards Marxists, right? The Bellingcat leftists.
Why is their failure to destroy Syria so crucial to understanding the current events in Gaza as well? And I know I just asked you 3 questions in one. So let me just go back to the initial one first. And that is, how central was the war in Syria to shaping the political landscape of the region?
Yeah, exactly.
And then has this clarified how bad the position of some Western Marxists were?
Well, I mean, sometimes,
and again, I've said every time Syria comes up, I've said it before and I'll say it again. It's really remarkable to me that it became controversial in any way to oppose U.S. imperialism in Syria. It honestly is amazing, considering we saw what happened to Libya. We saw what happened when NATO and the United States armed these like extremists in Libya, poured gasoline on a civil war there to overthrow Gaddafi, and they destroyed the country. They destroyed Libya. And they tried to do the same thing to Syria. And somehow this entire segment of the left emerged saying like, whoa, we can't be criticizing U.S. policy here too much. We don't want to be considered Assadist. We don't want to support Assad. So now we've got to take this kind of like third position bullshit where we pretend to oppose U.S. militarism while simultaneously rhetorically supporting it. You know, it's honestly incredible to me that became controversial in any way to say like, no, get U.S. out of Syria, no hands off Syria. You know, that honestly is, you got to hand it to the imperialist propaganda sometime. It's very, very effective. And I think that's one of the ultimate examples of that. The fact that like it became like a smear to criticize people of being like Assadist because they don't want the U.S. military to go into Syria and do to Syria what they did to Libya. And they destroyed the country, destroyed millions of people's lives. But let's hear this.
Regarding Syria, the humanitarian dimensions always takes, the West tries to focus on partial truth, and there's and this on this because they construct a lot of partial truth here and there. But speaking of the humanitarian dimension and the fact that capitalism and whoever is at the helm of capitalism, which is the international financial class, which is structurally based in the United States and Europe, right? They must have a face and they have a name, and this international financial class, which is in the lead of global development, is the reason why we have the structural genocide and other genocides, because they push the idea that we need to make money at any cost, and so they push they create the hunger, the diseases, the misery, and the war. So they create the structural genocide and the direct genocides. So everything else is, all the world, is sort of in a position of self-defense against this. So Syria is one nation which was in a position of self-defense as well, because Palestine is historically part of Syria as well. So it's part of the Arab population which was dispossessed, and so it was aggressed. It was aggressed by the Israelis, and the Israelis, of course, are backed by the Americans and the British and the Europeans, and so on, and they're armed with nuclear weapons. So you have a situation where a country is trying to survive, which has very meager resources. It doesn't have capital. It doesn't have physical capital much. It was under French colonialism, and the French slaughtered as they could, in Syria, which the usual work of colonialism. And they left it when they left it in tatters. There was nothing almost there, and so it was a state in a position of self-defense. And if you're an imperialist with a little money, you can buy a lot of people inside the country to destroy the country as well, if you want to destroy the country. And they do that everywhere, not only in Syria. Syria is no exception. I mean, wherever you have, a country which is trying to say, look, we want to keep more of our resources for ourselves. We want to grow as well. We want to live a better life. We want to live longer. Our longevity is 50. We want to make it 60 or 70. Well, they'll say,
Well, whatever, Doug, says Hassan's explanation for why he supports Erdogan, at least in comparison to Gulen, gets the point across well. You always prefer the leader who isn't a U.S. proxy, even if the other guy isn't great. Yeah, I mean, it's the Che quote, never trust the imperialists, not even for a moment, nada. Or it's Kwame Ture. If I'm the Imam of Mecca and American imperialism is fighting the devil, I'm on the side of the devil. It's really easy. Like, you just see, where's the U.S. government? What side are they taking? And you just simply take the other side. And it doesn't mean when you do that you support every single thing that this other side stands for or what they're about. It doesn't mean that at all. But it's very clear, as anti-imperialists or Marxists or whatever, it's very easy to figure out who we should be backing in each one of these cases. You simply look at where America is lining up and you line up on the other side, you know? And that's not campism. That's not campism. That's correctly understanding imperialism, how it works, who has imperialist power in the world and who doesn't, who's projecting, who has the ability to project military power around the world, and just standing on the other side of that. I find it really, really easy to do this, but many people seem to really, really struggle with this. One must go doom-pilled to accept government systems cannot save us. I don't know, Super Sorceress, I don't want to like psychoanalyze you at all. It does seem like, as some other people in supporting in the, as some people in the chat are pointing out, it seems a little bit like you're projecting your version of what the state means in a Western liberal democracy and projecting those exact values onto every other form of government in the world. And I don't really agree with doing that. I think different cultures and societies and economic and political and cultural systems have different sets of values. And a state isn't necessarily evil or bad if it's being conducted by people that have a correct set of values, that don't have this like Western colonialist mentality, you know? And like, I don't think, you know, I figured that that was your political persuasion, but that's the thing. I think that's where we're going to fundamentally disagree. If you want to talk about saving us, how it's impossible for government systems or the state to save us, as you say, I don't think we can be saved either by kind of these like anarcho-syndicalist collectives of like people independently growing food or organizing for whatever social reason that they need to. I just don't think that's feasible. I don't think that's possible. Maybe in some kind of future post-scarcity world, that's something to imagine that might be kind of cool and something that we should aspire to. But this is way, way in the future. This is way, way in the future, long, long from now, you know? Yeah, and it's going to take a long time to get there. And imperialism, which is the primary contradiction, like we're pointing out, needs to be dismantled and defeated before that can ever come to fruition. Well, I don't think worker unions could ruin anything. I could run everything. That was an interesting Freudian slip there as well. Because you're going to have unions there. What if reactionary unions emerge, or that have like reactionary or contradictory social values, you know, or have different goals or different aims? Like a good example is the Soviet Union. And, you know, the Soviet Union takes a lot of criticism for, you know, not giving enough power to workers' unions, right? And you look at like during the run up to World War II and the massive effort that was put into industrializing at this extremely fast rate. You know, and people were killed, people died, people froze in the muck, industrializing, building munitions factories. And if workers' unions had said like, well, no, we're against this, we don't want to do this. And like, that's understandable. But what would have happened then? They would have been completely overrun by the Nazi threat, that mass industrialization that had to happen. And that had to come from a centralized state that was commanding this. This mass industrialization process never would have happened. And if that hadn't have happened, they would have been completely consumed and destroyed by the Nazi threat. I think that's the ultimate example of that. Anyway, let's continue.
You know, they'll send a few NGOs and, you know, they put an army base or something. And Syria is no exception. I mean, it's not so difficult to understand these issues. And you know, it was being aggressed. It was being aggressed. It is aggressed all the time. I mean, it was aggressed all the time. And you know, in the end, you know, if you could, and it had suffered from, you know, from first of all, there was the neoliberal onslaught. You know, The idea that, after the fall of the Soviet Union, only the market works. No, nothing works. If you become like us, you become a marketeer, a free marketeer, you're going to be. And that, they got that. They foolishly enough, they believed in this idea, the Syrians, and it was to their detriment because the minute you get the market in, it becomes easy. You create the social division that makes it easy for imperialism to buy into with very few dollars. When somebody's making $50 a month, you could buy an army for $1 million or two, something like that, right? So, for very little money,
well,
you
ground
can
level news, I'm not really picking on the anarchists. I'm
like
responding to comments in the chat
and you can do this
based on what we're looking at.
So first of all, you're conquered by the ideas of neoliberalism.
And it's just a fundamental difference that I have, and I think a lot of people have.
But the fact that Syria had survived was
political ideology, which we talk about all the time on this program and others.
Against it. It's changed the power structure of the region because you're talking about, again, a very strategic region. Well, all regions are strategic, but this region in particular, it oversees the oil resource flowing out of it, and it's also it's a war region, and war is just as important as oil in the way it destroys people because people have a price too.
Good old Rob
just
to
like oil.
talk you through all this.
So it's it has become it has shifted the balance of power and created this corridor between Iran to South Lebanon, which is an axis of resistance against the state of Israel, which is against the United States.
Jay and Katie, thanks so much for the gifted sub. Thank you for that.
States imperialism. It's not Israel per se, It's all, the United States imperialism. So the global power structure.
You're not looking at it from a perspective that is long-term if you think doing the same thing over and over and getting worse results is working. But who are you talking about here? I'm a little bit confused about what you're referring to, honestly. Because as you see, that process is failing here in the West. But if you're talking about these competing states, you're talking about China, for example, that's kind of what got this conversation going. The idea that it's getting worse results that doesn't line up to the actual reality. They're getting better results. They're lifting living standards for millions of people, not just there, but around the world in the global South, etc. So I just kind of reject this idea that that's what's happening. I'm here for the anarchist Tate as a former ANCOM. What is to be done is stop imperialism and capitalist powers from destroying the worker state. I think that's a good point. Twitch 6935. And I will say as well that I have a huge amount of respect for anarchists who are often on the front lines of protests, leading social movements, defending immigrants, defending LGBTQIA plus rights, organizing workplaces, protesting police violence, racism, whatever else. I have a huge amount of respect for the work that a lot of anarchists do on this level. I think fundamentally the disagreement comes from how we should be these kind of theoretical discussions about how we should be organizing the state, foreign policy, this whole criticizing the idea of the state no matter where it is. These are where these disagreements come in. But I do want to mention that I do have huge amounts of respect for anarchists and the work that they do in communities, trying to do what they can to raise people's material conditions, protesting. I think that's fantastic. These are where the different disagreements come in when it comes to these larger discussions.
Because Syria could maintain a presence as a state and not dissolve into some mix of interwarring parties forever, that situation has created a sort of axis that could confront U.S. imperialism. And people must confront U.S. imperialism one way or another, right? Why so? Because if you're going to take away my field and my life and, take away my resources, if communism does not fit me as an ideology to fight you, I'm going to, go for green ideology or for Islamic ideology or for Pan-Africanism or Pan-Arabism. the class that is being beaten is going to take the cultural
or
forms
Pan-African,
from
Pan-Arabic,
its own history
Islamic
and
socialism.
mold these cultural forms
Now we're
into
cooking.
An ideology of resistance. And also what we're seeing now is much of, before it used to be the
Feels like the
communism,
real thing holding the Western
socialism,
left
now
back
it's
is
become,
class collaborationism. I mean, it's one of the really effective things about our economic system, about how we're pitted against one another. It's like it's so adverse to forming any kind of like solidarity with one another. It's kind of one of the central tenets of our whole economic system.
Islamic culture that is housing the ideology of resistance in Gaza, but it's still a class struggle. It's still a class. What is a class struggle? It's people who are trying to live, but they're not allowed to live. The people who are not allowed to live are the working classes, are the proletarians of this world. And the people who are killing them are the bourgeoisie, the financial bourgeoisie of this world. And so you have this situation which is unfolding. And again, it's pretty crucial that, it was very, very important for the axis of resistance and for the third world to keep Syria from collapse, as other states.
As we can see in Gaza right now, Syria not collapsing, not losing Syria in that axis of resistance is crucial to Gaza's ability to fight back. Without Syria, you could argue it wouldn't be possible. Like you mentioned, this corridor, and also Lebanon. Would Lebanon without Syria have the ability to stand up to the forces of American empire in the region, Israel being it? I mean, that's what's so crucial here. And it kind of is amazing to me that those who were, quote, ostensibly, or at least calling themselves leftists and Marxists, who were advocating for the destruction of Syria, for the collapse of the Syrian government, and continue to do that when it comes to Iran, are sitting here claiming that they are against genocide in Gaza, when had it not been for the existence of these states that you hate so much and want to collapse, there would be no resistance. And then that's what's so crucial. I mean, just to summarize what you're saying here, I want to ask you, Ali, about, because another country that you've written about that you alluded to this earlier is China. I think, I want to talk about China's path to development, because we've talked a lot about this world
We've already talked a lot about that today.
Western imperialism has created, where, they're just killing people, stealing resources. It's this accumulation of waste and death. It's a horrific, horrific system that causes people to have shorter lives and that kills so many around the world. And then you have China, and China's path to development differs very much from the Western one. And before the genocide in Gaza captured the world's attention, Western politicians and media were just constantly throwing these temper tantrums over the rise of China's economy.
It's coming
back. So as we enter into this era of emerging,
someone pressed the China up button.
With, an increasingly
somewhere
prosperous China
this week,
an increasingly powerful China, a country again whose development you have written a book about. I want to ask, how did China avoid the path to neoliberalism, and why is it important for socialists to understand that as it becomes more and more clear that our options are either, this imperialist barbarism or an alternative socialist path?
Right. Again, China was one of the poorest countries in the world. You're talking about the life expectancy of 30, 31 years old in 1948, 49 or something like that. I don't recall the numbers, but it was pretty low.
And remember these numbers too, when we talk about Mao killed millions. 10 million, 20 million. Like, look at the life expectancy. And you can point this out about the USSR as well. Look at the life expectancy before and after the Chinese Revolution. And this whole idea that they killed millions and millions of 20 million people, 30 million people. It's like amazing when there's this objective measurement of how so many people actually got to live meaningful lives, when that was not possible before. Why exactly does China want to get back Taiwan if things are going so well, though? Because Taiwan is part of China, and they've always made that clear, that they intend to reunify with Taiwan, because Taiwan was like split off because of the Chinese Civil War, as I'm sure you know. and has this alternate system. And also they don't want Taiwan to be a glorified U.S. military base directly on their doorstep, which I think is pretty reasonable. In the same way that I don't think Russia wanted Ukraine to become a glorified U.S. military base right on their doorstep. You know, they've always been very, very clear that that it's the same country. That's official U.S. policy, that it's the one China policy. And they've always been very clear about their intentions to reunify. I don't think they're in any hurry to do that now because of any reason, any specific economic reason, but more that like that's always been their policy. And yeah, they don't want Taiwan to become a U.S. military base directly on their border, which is, I think, pretty reasonable.
Water, nothing, and so you're starting out from a zero position, and the five.
This is kind of the thing this is kind of the contradiction as super sorceress that I feel like you're kind of overlooking here, where you deny the role that U.S. imperialism plays in all of these geopolitical affairs. These things are not just happening in a vacuum. I'm not supporting U.S. protection of Taiwan either, but it's a binary choice though. There's not some mysterious third option. It's either Taiwan goes fully into the U.S. camp, which creates this incredibly hostile situation, or it reunifies with China. There's not this like third way of doing things. There just isn't. That's idealism. The material reality is that these are the two options that are being presented here. There's no situation where like Taiwan is going to retain some kind of autonomy or sovereignty. It won't be sovereign or autonomous. It'll be a U.S. client state, or it'll reunify with China. These are the two options.
And it's a country that was hungry, literally hungry. I mean,
I'm for the U.S. leaving Taiwan. That's great, but that's not what's going to happen. They're not leaving Taiwan. That's the problem. You can say, oh, I'm for the U.S. leaving Taiwan, but they're not. They're not leaving Taiwan. They're not going to. So you got to progress from there, not this like fantasy version of the things that we would like to happen, but like the reality, the actual reality of what's going to happen.
The world always, historically, it's the country with the highest population in the world. And so here's the revolution under the Communist Party of China, the leadership of the Communists. Takes a country so huge. And the first block in the transformation of the country was to feed the country. You're going to feed hundreds of millions of people. And then the first thing to do was the agricultural revolution. So to basically make a revolution in agriculture. And the success of which is the basis for all the others. Because if you can feed and house and clothe and so forth, you provide the basic minimum under Mao Zedong. You can do whatever later.
I don't think the U.S. will fight to keep it. I think they'll try to arm Taiwan as much as possible, then leave. Like what happened in Ukraine, I think Ukraine's a good example, and they've proven that they don't have the arms. They don't have the ability to protect Ukraine by arming them as a proxy, and just as they will not have the ability to do that with Taiwan. In fact, they have even less of an ability to do that now that they're spread so thin with arming Israel and Ukraine, which is leading to decreasing dividends for them.
You also created all the means of the classical education and knowledge and pure sciences and so forth. So this was a period from 1950 to 1975. I don't recall the numbers exactly here, but if you take out the fall in production that occurred in 60, 61, 62, when the split with the Soviet Union happened, we must understand that China is part of, under Stalin, it was part of the vision for a Soviet Asia. So, I mean, the aid that it received from the Soviet Union was tremendous to make what it made. So when the split occurred, there was a huge drop in production. So if you take that out, if you take that period out, if you conclude that period, the growth rate, average growth rate, is going to be between 6.5%, let's say, or around 6%, let's say, between 50 and 70.
Yeah, I think so too, Joe. I mean, Mao saw which direction the Soviet Union was going in, and he was proven correct.
Out, then the growth rate will be about closer to 9%.
And like Mao talked about, I think they were kind of like turned off by the way that the Soviet Union turned on Stalin as well, and the way that they totally like completely after Stalin's death, heaped all these horrors and all these things on Stalin, whereas like their strategy when it came to Mao, for example, is just to say, yeah, some mistakes were made, but we uphold Mao. We think he's a central part of our legacy. And the way that the Soviet Union after Stalin's death did not do that, I think, was for a lot of countries, including Albania as well, under our man Hoxha. That was something that really the anti-revisionist gang, they weren't very happy about it.
Period 1975 to 2020, the growth rate is also going to be 8.5%. So we have a continuity. When they say the market economy worked in China, they're forgetting that what was before was also working. And it was the basis that came after, which was not a market economy. It was something like a new economic program, that everything, we've allowed the private sector to operate, but we are in control. So you could be a billionaire, but the land upon which your factory is built is the state and the people's.
Khrushchevite revisionism.
And where you put your money in the bank, the bank is the
US,
state.
I will guarantee the U.S. leaves Taiwan.
Consume
okay,
as much as you want, but your billions are the states and people's money, which are going to be redeployed to making more wealth in the nation. Why? Because we don't allow you to take your money out. There's something called capital control. So when you have strong agricultural policy, and I can go out here, I'm in China now, and I can go out here to buy things, and there's no inflation, things are relatively cheap, everybody saves, and there's practically full employment. And if I go out to buy things, that's what I'm going to see. I'm going to see very, very good, plenty of things, unlike before, because I remember the wars of colonialism have destroyed the capacity of China to rise. The idea that you can take a country which had nothing into a country that is now one of the leading nations in the world is a tremendous project that has been undertaken under the leadership. And it's a model for us insofar as, making sure that your people have the essentials and housing and food and all of this, and also clamping your capital accounts and letting your money work for you and your people work for you, not sending the best people out to the United States, and not sending the billions that you're earning to Swiss banks. And so the story of development is very simple. You want to keep everything, and it's a story of success. So it's a story when you're sovereign. You make a decision, and you have a party in power that is committed to the people. Because if you look at the CPC, it has a membership of 100 million people, which means that there is one CPC member in every family across the board.
You've so there might be opportunities there. Of the friendship triangle.
Oh goodness, Super Sorceress! Thanks for 5 gifted subs. That's very, very kind of you. Thank you. I really appreciate that. This is how we win. This is called left unity, okay? Thank you for that. Really, seriously, I appreciate it.
Probably one. But it's very difficult to make opportunities within this party. Why? Because everything is discussed at the grassroots level, and it filters to the top, and the decision is taken after a lot of democratic processes that occurred within the decision-making process of the nation. So there is nothing that's going to steer the nation in an anti-national position. And they're not going to do something to harm themselves in the end. So now,
I think I figured that out from the Sorceress.
Development, and they have a longevity
left unity
higher
is supporting
than
the Rob Rousseau show. That's
and
exactly
that's the
right.
principle.
Absolutely.
Signifier of the.
We don't want to let them divide us, okay?
States. And if you look at the purchasing power parity income, the 90% own their homes, I think, I don't remember, and transport is cheap and things like that. And they worked on the environmental issue. They have huge advances in reducing pollutions in their cities and making sure that they recycle and so on. So it proves that this waste process that occurs in the West, I need to basically extract people and extract resources to live. That could be reversed. If when China invests in Africa, it builds roads, it builds airports, ports, whatever.
I've been saying
it doesn't go there like the IMF or the United States, because the IMF.
That's exactly. Look at that. Look at how smart we are.
It doesn't go there to say, I'm going to stabilize your currency, but I need you to cut hospitals and education. China goes there to invest, to put some product, and it's going to lend money because it's carrying a lot of dollars. That it pretty much is a nuisance to China, because when you put dollars in the United States, they're not yours. Look at what's going to happen to Russia, right? And so the whole system works in such a way to undermine.
Absolutely.
And when you build in the developing world, when you improve people's lives with better infrastructure, you're doing exactly the opposite thing that the United States does. What does the United States do? It comes to destroy. It comes to bomb. If it doesn't bomb, it has a military base beside the country, and it's going to whisper to that country, look, you do what we want, or else we're going to bomb you.
If you're getting called authoritarian left in MR chat, C-SPAN, Stan, you're going to fit in. You're going to fit in nicely in this community. I'm a big time authoritarian leftist, so it's good.
Just like they're being bombed. Whereas China is doing exactly. So what China is doing is something like a people's war exercised on a global scale.
Wow.
It's the same people's war that it did, and it's an anti-imperial. How could China be imperialist when it's doing that? So it is clearly the anti-imperialist embodiment. And yet,
yeah, I mean, that's the fundamental argument, right? If that's your view of imperialism, is that you're making yourself rich at the expense of keeping other nations poor, and you look at the Belt and Road Initiative.
You can count on me.
There's no way.
Good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Plunger Man, thanks for the gifting sub to our new friend C-SPAN Stan. If that's your view of imperialism, you keep other nations poor so that you can be rich. That's the opposite of what the Belt and Road Initiative does. It's improving people's lives through this kind of development and infrastructure. It's helping these countries develop so they can be sovereign and sustainable and more wealthy. It's the opposite. It's the opposite of keeping these places in poverty and making sure that they're poor so that you can benefit and become rich.
You see some Marxists in the United States and Europe, and we're saying, look, China is imperialist. It's lending to Africans, and it's doing this and that, which is absolutely, nauseating in a sense.
It is. It really is. I love that explanation you just gave. And
that was a fantastic video. Thank you to Rania and that's the end. Thank you to Rania and the team at Breakthrough News for that one. It's another really great and informative interview there. There's one, I've got to go pretty soon, but there's one more thing I wanted to look at, and it's connected to everything that we were saying right now. I'm going to try and get through this very fast, but I was talking about this propaganda button that seems to have been pressed this week. And now there's this effort. Now, once again, we hadn't heard about the Uyghur genocide for quite a while. We hadn't heard about that. And since the U.S. media basically started admitting that whatever all the crazy horror stories that they were accusing China of weren't actually really going on anymore, if it ever was. We haven't really heard about it. And all of a sudden, while Israel is in the process of killing tens of thousands of people, now all of a sudden we're getting this, it's coming back. And we're seeing posts like this one. So number one, there's this tweet from Kala. Oh, let me see if I can find the Kala Walsh tweet about this before we really jump into this. Let me see. Hold on. Friend of the show, Kala Walsh. who, again, whatever she's being accused of is doing a lot to protest and take direct action to stop the genocide in Palestine right now, has put her own freedom on the line and her own, sovereignty, and was arrested and accused of like terrorism, basically, for some of the direct action that she was part of here. So here's the tweet. And once again, the community notes. And I don't know if this community note made it out of containment, but it's really interesting. So there's this clip. There's a tweet about Noah Shap saying, "Oh, I feel bad for him. He's only 19, whatever." And Kala says, "I'm 19 and I don't support a genocide. How's that an excuse?" And then you get this reader's added context community note. It says, "Poster openly supports China's treatment of Uyghur Muslims." And sorry, this is where we're going to get very spicy right before the end. And I got to go in about 20 minutes, so I don't have a lot of time to get into this. Maybe it's another time we can do that. But like, that's amazing. And she says, what a ridiculous propagandistic community note that has nothing to do with my original tweet. Zionists are undeniably committing genocide in Palestine. There's zero evidence that China's committing genocide against Uyghurs. And even the US government has admitted that. And we're seeing posts now like this from these kind of accounts that have a lot of followers, pro-Palestinian accounts. Says, "I don't know who needs to hear this, but you are an enemy of the Palestinian movement if you deny the atrocities committed against the Uyghurs. Palestinians overwhelmingly support the plight of the Uyghur Muslims in Xinjiang." And I don't even know how much that is true. I would like to see a fact check on that. But that I think it's kind of remarkable now to try and draw this equivalence. Between China's activities in Xinjiang as it pertains to the Uyghurs and other ethnic groups there versus what is going on in Palestine. And I genuinely am confused about how anyone could suggest that there's this like similarity in these two things when we're in the process of seeing that isn't true at all. A Palestinian envoy said they were impressed with how many mosques there was. Like, Israel has bombed Gaza into the ground. They've destroyed almost all of Gaza, all of its infrastructure. They've killed tens of thousands of people. What has China done in Xinjiang and these regions? They've invested billions into, like we're talking about with the Belt and Road Initiative, improving people's living standards around the world. And that's what they've done there, is invest billions of dollars into these regions so people have jobs. So there's infrastructure, there's transit. Like, if you think that there's some kind of similarity, we can just simply look at images of the cities. Let's just look at pictures of Urumqi in Xinjiang, which is just like this. It's huge amounts of development, modern infrastructure, and compare this with what Gaza looks like right now, and you'll see that it is night and day. This is two totally different phenomena. And this is the reality, okay? This is the reality. There was, and we've talked about this a number of times, there was terrorist attacks going on in Urumqi, right? Or in Xinjiang and in the broader region, from these like Uyghur separatist groups or extremist groups that were killing predominantly Uyghurs, by the way. These were attacks like in mosques where Uyghurs were being killed in terrorist attacks. And China, just look at the ways that Israel or the West responds to terrorism, the global war on terror, bombing and invading other countries. It's not just Gaza, bombing and invading countries all over the world, drone striking people, killing tens of thousands of people, establishing CIA black site torture prisons around the world. This was the Western war on terror. So when China had a terrorism problem, how did they respond to that? Through this kind of development, investment, promoting education. And listen, it's undeniable that China came down with a extremely heavy hand, okay? And making these kind of like mandatory vocational schools that people were put in an effort to stamp out this kind of extremism. Now, like, you don't have to like that. And you don't even have to say that like everyone's human rights were totally respected during that time, which is now kind of past. It's not even going on anymore. Okay? It's undeniable they came down with a really heavy hand. But that's the question, is like, what's the response to terrorism? Is it invading other countries, bombing other countries? Did China drop one bomb? In this process? Where's this genocide happening? There's no genocide happening. You can certainly deny that they came down with a heavy hand, that they did what they could to try and push back against this growing extremism and terrorism, a lot of which was fueled by the Afghanistan war. Afghanistan's right on the border, and the destabilization that happened because of that. You don't have to pretend that it's perfect or that everything was great. Or that, everything was just like everyone's human rights was respected. You don't have to pretend that that's the case. But I think it's insane to me to compare these two kind of strategies and say like, oh yeah, you want to talk about the Palestinian genocide, you have to talk about the Uyghur genocide as well. Like, not one bomb has been dropped. We can't even name like a single person that has been killed in this genocide. We don't see people trying to leave. We could get a plane ticket right now and fly to Xinjiang and go hang out in Urumqi and talk to like Uyghur people that are working there and living there, many of whom, regardless of what ethnic group they're part of, have had their lives improve drastically over the last couple of decades because of the development and because of the investment and infrastructure. The idea that there's like any comparison between these two things, I think, is nuts to me. And now we're seeing just this week, it seems like some button has been pressed. It's actually kind of scary almost how it's been happening. Now this discourse is coming up again. And again, these like popular accounts saying stuff like, to people who support Palestine but who deny the Uyghur genocide, do you not even feel an ounce of shame when you use exactly the same talking points as Zionists who deny the genocide in Gaza? What makes you any different from Zionists? And once again, I don't understand. I do not understand like what this connection is. When you see people being bombed, starved, and the kind of just the mass murder and just the depravity that we've seen over the last 3 months versus this system where China said, we're going to invest, we're going to continue this development, we're going to try and make sure that people are able to freely practice their religion, but aren't going to become extremists and separatists and engage in violence and terrorist attacks. Like, again, you don't have to like any of that. You can say like, wow, that's too heavy-handed. I don't like it. I don't appreciate that. But the idea that there's some like similarity between these two situations, I think, is insane. And who are the Uyghurs that are saying we're being victimized? They're not people that live there. They're not people that live there. Like, we're seeing images from people in Gaza, Palestinians, saying this is what's happening to us. We're being terrorized. We're being mass murdered. We're being ethnically cleansed. This is a genocide. The Uyghurs that are saying this are like, live in the West. They're part of these like NED-backed dissident groups, And when Uyghur people that actually live in that region that are like, no, actually, I support China. I want to be part of China. My life is improved as a result of the investment and the development that's happened over the last couple of years. And we say like, no, you're wrong. You're fake. It's wild to me, honestly. And we have to reject this, I think. We really do. I really don't get it. The Uyghurs' only statement on Palestine was to condemn Hamas. Yeah, this Uyghur Congress, it's backed by the West. And once again, we have to go back to like the don't trust the imperialist Che Guevara thing. And like I talked about before, you see which side the US is rallying behind, and that has to inform our analysis of it, right? When America says there's a genocide happening in Xinjiang, it should be obvious to us that there's not. When America says there's not a genocide happening in Palestine, there obviously is. Just the very fact that America has tried to turn this Uyghur genocide into this destabilizing tactic against China, which is being done purely for economic reasons, because America doesn't care about anyone's human rights, certainly not Uyghurs or anyone else. It's being done purely for economic reasons. And the very fact that America is backing this like dissident ethnic group and suggesting that there is a genocide, this is coming from like Mike Pompeo of the CIA, people with the NED, the ASPI, these demonic think tanks that are backed by the arms industry, Adrian Zenz, who's a fascist Zionist evangelical Christian. Just the very fact that these people are backing the Uyghurs should be the sign that there is no similarity, you know? So again, I don't have a lot of time to get into this much more, but I wanted to mention this because it seems like now this discourse is coming up and people are trying to make this case that, oh, if you support Palestine, you must support the Uyghurs. And it's like, no, I don't think you do have to. Actually, I don't think you do need to do that. I think they're trying to redirect the focus of Muslims to something else since America is escalating shit in Yemen. Yeah, it's that, and it's also just trying to make this false equivalence, I think. And this whole idea of a Uyghur genocide was being done purely to destabilize China for economic reasons, because they're threatened by China's growth and its rise as this like global hegemon. And that's the only reason, because America doesn't care about anyone's human rights, and we should be smart enough to realize that. And again, these groups of Uyghurs who are saying we must support our plight, we must talk about this genocide, we must establish an ethno-state in East Turkestan. These are all Western-backed dissident groups, whereas the vast majority of people that actually live there, no matter what ethnic group they're part of, because there's Uyghurs, there's Han Chinese, and there's many other ethnic groups that live in that region. The vast majority of people that live there, their lives have improved. Their living standards and their material conditions have improved drastically over the last several years. It's just night and day. It's a totally night and day different approach to this like question of separatism, extremism, Islamic fundamentalism, and all this stuff. And so I think when people try to put this pressure, no matter how like much credibility they have in the Palestine movement, try to put this pressure on people to suggest that there's some equivalence or that we must support this like this campaign to destabilize China over this very questionable kind of genocide accusation. No, I don't think we do need to do that. The second Fatima tweet is so stupid. Like, yeah, I'll trust the U.S. when they say there isn't a genocide. I find it especially hilarious when they say things like, even the U.S. denies there's a genocide against the Uyghurs, and in exactly the same breath they say we should not trust anything the U.S. says because of their support for Israel. This is just completely incomprehensible to me, honestly. And the whole reason that anyone was ever talking about the Uyghur genocide to begin with was because it was promoted by the U.S., by Mike Pompeo, former CIA director, these Western think tanks funded by the arms manufacturing industry, these NED-backed dissident groups. That's where these accusations are coming from. And just the very fact that that's where it's coming from, and that the West and America also backs Israel fully and backs Zionism, should indicate that we shouldn't fucking listen to what they have to say. Anyway, don't have all that much time to like rant and rave about that. I got to get going. I got to go in like 10, 15 minutes to pick my kid up from school. So that's going to do it for today. Thanks everyone for tuning into the stream as always. I have appreciated all the hanging out and the discussion today. If you can, folks, please subscribe to TRRS, okay? If you can, please subscribe. What, 13 subs to go. Only 13. Can you believe that? Only 13 measly subs to go to get to the sub goal. So if anyone else watching right now feels like supporting this channel and supporting the work that I do on here, on Twitch, each and every day.
Wow. Okay, Rob. Seriously, wow.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Savage Goon. Savage Goon. Thank you for the 10 gifted subs. That is so kind of you. My goodness. I really, really appreciate that, Savage Goon. Thank you so much. And now only 3 subs to go. Only 3 subs to go to get to the goal. 165 viewers. Only 3 brave heroes of the 165 viewers need to subscribe to drag my ass across the finish line yet again. Only 3. I really love hearing that alert. It's always so great to hear that alert. Oh, folks, you got to remind me to email Vijay Prashad as well and to set up the interview on Monday. On Monday, I got to do that. Maybe I should do it on the weekend. Shit, I probably should have done it this week. Shit. Someone remind me to email VJ. Why is that your job? It shouldn't be your job. Thank you, Dave. I'm looking forward to the show tomorrow. Again, if you're in Montreal, the surrounding area, please come if you can. It is still the week, technically. I guess it's unlikely that I'm going to do this after I finish, though. I gotta say, it's unlikely. Folks, are there 3 brave heroes? Savage Goon stepped to the plate with a whoppingly generous 10 gifted subs. Are there 3 brave heroes who are going to get to the sub goal? Only 3. Three brave goons. Some of our finest gooners. Avoid eating Valentine's donuts before the big show. I will do that. I will avoid that. The 3 brave goons are busy gooning, and I have some people and I have some names in mind of people that I think are probably doing that right now. Honestly, you know who you are. You know who you are. Still nothing, huh? Okay, it's still only 3 subs to go, and I'm really on the way out the door here. Are there 3 more fine folks?
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob
Mistress of Insanity.
to talk
That's
you
not
through
necessary.
all this.
That's not necessary. Mistress of Insanity, thank you very much for the 3 gifted subs. That's very, very kind of you. I feel like it shouldn't fall on you. I think there's been okay, well, I'm not going to start. I'm not going to go down this road. Mistress of Insanity, thank you. I really appreciate you. And I hope you had a nice day today. Well, that's it. We did it. We made it to the sub goal. That's wonderful. Okay, I gotta go.
You've just become an elite member of the Friendship Triangle.
Thor Veneer, thank you for the 5 gifted subs. Now it's too much. I believe the goal was 35. Okay. Ugh. Can't even follow simple directions. Unbelievable. Thor Veneer, thank you for the 5 gifted subs. That's very, very kind of you. Thank you for that. I'm sorry. You should be sorry. You should be. Stop supporting my content with financial donations. It's very upsetting. Only 10 more and Rob must sing a song. Let's not go down that road. I literally don't even have time to sing a song. So No one gift 10 subs, please. I'd be so frustrated if that happened. Thank you, friends. Thank you again. We're going to rate our friend David Tovarish, and I'm not going to wait for the whole minute or whatever to go by. I just wanted to get higher on the pyramid. Thorvin, you're there. Elite tier, okay? Elite tier member. We're now best friends. Okay, I gotta go. I'll see you in the Discord server. Wish me luck tomorrow. I think it should be fantastic. Thank you once again, folks. Peace.